One more time, we're gonna celebrate. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. Celebrate and dance with me. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate one more time.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
One more time, we're gonna celebrate and dance with me. What's up, guys? Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Fridays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and every other Sunday. Wasn't on Sabby and JB show today. JB was at the University of Central Florida. He was there as press. So he was registered as press and he was covering their demonstration that they had there today. So check that out when you get a chance. He did go live with that coverage. So we have a good show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We have 6 news stories for you. Tonight's theme is total chaos. We're going to start out by giving people shout outs in the chat. And who knows, we may do a surprise call in tonight after the show. We shall see. What's going on? CBC Voter says, happy Thursday, Sabby Sabs and Eric T. Red. Hello. Greetings, vote green. Senator Booker making history by speaking for over 25 hours will not cause a Democratic Party blue wave in 2026. The Democratic Party must have Green Party policies in order to win in 2026. Interesting. Well. Shout out to Tim. Cory Booker took almost $1 million from AIPAC. He can kick rocks. Have a great show, Sabby. And don't forget your YouTube plaque. That's right. Thank you for reminding me. Hello, Eric and chat, and of course, Free Palestine. Shout out to Larez, Sup, Sabby, Eric, Cory, and RBN fam. I'm surprised the Elon supported judge lost. Wisconsin was red in 2024. Booker is a clown. Notice he didn't mention police brutality during his speech. Hit the like. We'll get into all of it. Shout out to Rocco says, I know about the guy leaving his kid's story, but I won't reveal it and be a spoiler. We appreciate that, Rocco. We appreciate it. Shout out to Lawrence says, free Palestine. Greetings, Aladdin says, none of them fear God or the day of judgment, but it is coming. The horror that will fill many hearts on that day. Serves you right. Enjoy the wrath of the one true God of Ibrahim. Shout out to Aladdin. Greetings, Bill. Andrew Schulz is repulsive on a molecular level. One of these adult baby types that use elementary mean kid tactics to soothe his fragile ego. Every bad joke is him saying, I miss Binky. Shout out to Chrome says, peace, love, Sabby. Shout out to Hannah says, Elon gotta go. Greetings, Moo Moo Choo. Booker is exactly why the Dems are losing massive support. It's like giving this whole story about how farmers are great, but then serving plain chicken with no flavor. I don't know why I said flavor like that. At least do something, please. Good point there, Moo Moo. Greetings, William says sup. Shout out to Trash Panda says peace. Greetings, Mark says Sabby. Shout out to, whoops, almost hit the wrong one again. Itoli. Good evening, Sabby and chat. What's up? Greetings, MC said, don't need no hateration, holleration. Shout out to Ann says, Cory Booker takes blood money. Greetings, Randy. Good evening, Sabby and all my revolutionary comrades. Shout out to Natasha in this dancery. Greetings, shout out, of course, to Eric, producer in the house, says rock the house. Shout out to Kill Your E. Groger says, someone somewhere said it was doobie-doobie-doo time. They did. Greetings, Isabel says, hey, buenas noches. Shout out to Rich says, welcome to the Cool Kids Hangout. And greetings, Trell. Hello, Sabby. I'm sure you could beat Cory Booker in both a speech and a debate. It's interesting. I met Cory Booker back in 2020. I remember this. I remember a lot when he was running for president then. So much to say. And greetings, James says, Sabby, love, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot to get into, so let's go ahead and dive right in. I want to give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for holding down the damn fort. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: ultimate, sabinators, but they're not haters. Of course, they're also sabsters. Don't forget about those sabbies. And we also have members. Thank you guys so much. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen on the ticker throughout the show. Thank you. Appreciate you all. Well, fam, there are the best of times and there are the worst of times. And then there are times when it's just total chaos. And that's exactly what we're experiencing right now. We'll go ahead and dive into that thumbnail to show you what we are discussing tonight. We also have a bonus story, which is breaking news, and we're going to get into that as well. Tonight, we are discussing Andrew Schulz upset. That is comedian Andrew Schulz there. He is has some things to say. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss, if you haven't heard by now, Cory Booker makes history. A lot of people were talking about for how long he spoke and what he said, but not many are talking about what Cory Booker did not say. And we're going to dive into that. We're also going to discuss Israel expands in Gaza. We're going to talk about this new announcement here from Benjamin Netanyahu about land seizure in Gaza. And we're also going to tap into that protest that was at Columbia University where the students chained themselves to the gates. So we're going to get into all of that, folks. We're also going to discuss, yes, the special election did happen. Elon Musk fails in Wisconsin. We're going to talk about what that could mean for the Democratic Party coming to midterms for 2026. Is it a big win, or are they winning because Donald Trump and Elon Musk are not doing what they said they would do to help the economy? We're also discussing, this is a controversial story, and some people have different opinions about it. I'm going to tell you how I feel. Dad arrested at McDonald's for leaving his kids at McDonald's while he was at a job interview at McDonald's. We're going to get into that, folks, and how people feel about this. We'll dive into that. That is the craziest story for the week. It's Saturday, so Thursday. So, on Thursdays, we dive into our craziest stories for the week. So that is the crazy story this week. And we also have a bonus story, which is breaking news, new information about these tariffs that Donald Trump has implemented and what it's doing right now, currently, to the economy. Everybody buckle up. The theme is total chaos. As you can see from the stories, it's a lot of crazy shit that's going down. We're going to go ahead and dive in with the very first story. If you haven't done so, smash that like button, fam. Thank you. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. Okay. Getting into this first story. It was just Liberation Day. And during Liberation Day, Donald Trump decided to announce that he is going to implement more tariffs. Now, there has been a retaliation response, and we now have breaking news that just came through about 2 hours ago. Everybody get a hold of this. The stock market has just plunged as Wall Street is reacting to Donald Trump's tariffs. Let's get into this. This is breaking news. Buckle up. It's about to get tight.
This is CNN Breaking News.
And we begin with the breaking news from Wall Street. Trading has been underway now for just about 30 minutes, and nervous investors, very nervous investors, are weighing in on President Trump's historic new global tariffs. The early assessment, deep concerns. Almost all goods entering the United States will face a new tax of at least 10%, and that means inflation-weary Americans will see even higher prices on virtually everything. And that adds to the deepening concerns among economists that the U.S. and indeed much of the world may be on a collision course with a recession. Let's begin this hour with CNN business and politics correspondent Vanessa Yurkevich. She's in New York watching all of this unfold. So, Vanessa, where do the markets stand right now?
Wolf, markets are tumbling as investors are really digesting worse than expected tariffs. You have the Dow, the NASDAQ, and the S&P all down below, as you can see there, 3%. Retail stocks in particular really selling off. Nike, Adidas, Lululemon, these are companies that source a lot of their goods from abroad, countries that are now under higher tariffs. And just look at the countries that were hit in yesterday's announcement. You have the European Union, 20% tariff. You have Japan, 24%, China, 34%, and Vietnam, 46%. Key trading partners to the U.S. Investors are worried what this means for businesses.
Yes, they are very worried, and they should be worried what this means for businesses. So everybody take a look at these numbers here. 20% for the European Union, 24% for Japan, 26% for South Korea, 34% for China, 46% for Vietnam. So I just want to remind everybody, it's really interesting because just a couple of days ago, Richard Wolff was here on this show, and he predicted that we will have a recession this year. Now, I know that some people may say, well, economists always say this or whatever, but Richard Wolff has been spot on about this before in the past. So I find it interesting that he made that prediction just a couple of days ago on the show. If you haven't seen the video, watch it when you get a chance. It's called There Will Be a Recession This Year with Professor Richard Wolff. Just a couple of days ago, he said that on the show, and now you see what is happening. Listen, these tariffs are no joke. People have to remember we don't make much here in the United States. Even when it comes to some of the products that say, oh, it's sold here, it's a mom and pop store. People have to remember a lot of the materials oftentimes come from other countries because manufacturing is not what it used to be in this country. So we have to keep that in mind. Yes, The prices are going to increase. I warned everybody about this. I remember people told me that like, oh no, it's just a game that Donald Trump is playing. No, it's not just a game. As you can see, the stock market has just plunged. You can see this is Wall Street's response to this. Prices will increase on everything. And you may think it's just going to be something that you may not purchase, right? No, that's not how this works because the materials are not here. Whether it's the plastics, whether it's something like nickel, silver, we're getting these materials from other countries, and we have been doing so for quite some time. So buckle up, folks. We're looking at total chaos. It's only April. It's crazy.
And then, of course, those businesses' profits. But let's just reset. What do we know right now? We know that there are auto tariffs in effect right now. But coming on Saturday is that 10% universal tariff on Wednesday, higher tariffs on about 60 countries, tariffs on auto parts, foreign auto parts on May 3rd, and then maybe coming additional tariffs on lumber, semiconductors, and I'll add.
Okay, let's pause here for just a second. If you have a car payment, you need to pay attention right now. One thing that could be impacted because of these tariffs, they mention auto parts, but they also need to mention your car payment. That could increase. So everybody just take a look for a second and ask yourself, can you afford a higher car payment? All of these things are increasing. Everyone will be impacted. The question is whether or not you can afford to pay more. So take a look at that, folks. 10% across the board tariffs go into effect this Saturday. Wednesday, higher tariffs on some countries take effect. May 3rd, tariffs on auto parts, tariffs on lumber, semiconductors to be determined. So think about people that work in these businesses as well. Think about people that work at auto part dealerships, right? Think about mechanics. Think about people that live in Maine, and a lot of people that live in Maine work in lumber. So these materials are going to be more expensive for them to purchase.
Add copper there as well. And as you mentioned, Wolf, there is talk of what this could mean for a recession. I just spoke to an analyst who says that the longer that these tariffs stay in place, the more likely that there will be a recession. We also heard from Mark Zandi from Moody's Analytics, who said if they follow through, if these tariffs go into effect, I'd buckle up and brace for impact. A recession seems more likely than not. Wolf?
All right, Vanessa Yurkevich in New York for us. Thank you very much, Pamela.
Well, Wolf, the White House and Republican lawmakers concede that the ripple effect of the tariffs will cause some pain to Americans. But the White House says it's the initial cost to revive manufacturing jobs in the U.S. Here's what the vice president said this morning.
For 40 years, we've had an economy that rewards people who ship American jobs overseas and raises taxes on American workers, and we're flipping that on its head. We're going to cut taxes for American workers and for American companies that build here. We're going to make it harder to ship American jobs overseas. It's a total shift in the way that we've done economic policy in the United States of America, but it was necessary.
All right, let's go live now to CNN White House reporter Elena Trina. Elena, what else are you hearing from the administration this morning?
Well, Pamela, it's clear that the White House has been very intentional in its messaging. You know, despite some of the president's defenders, Republicans on Capitol Hill, others who have argued that the president is a pragmatist at heart, that perhaps he would pull back on some of these tariffs, it's clear they were wrong. The president was serious about this. And as Vance just laid out, and as we've heard from other top advisors this morning, he is committed to these tariffs really because he fundamentally believes the United States is getting taken advantage of, and he wants to really break the trading system that has been built over the last 70 or 80 years now and see this realignment. Now, we heard from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt this morning. She was speaking with CNN. She said that, you know, this isn't going to be a negotiation. This is a national emergency. Listen to how she put it.
The president is firm in his approach, and the president is ensuring economic stability here in the United States of America. This is a common sense policy, and if these countries wanted to negotiate, if these countries wanted to do what's right, they've had 70 years to do it.
I think, Pamela,
there is some people understand that. Some people have also said that, like, well, if the countries were willing to negotiate earlier, wouldn't be in the situation. But the reality is, I guess the way that Trump kind of sees it is that Americans may feel some pain for a short period of time, but it'll all work out in the end. Okay. The problem is a lot of people can't afford to feel any type of pain right now. So when we talk about the car payments, for example, cars were already expensive prior to these tariffs. We're talking about auto parts as well. Just think about the fact if something happens to your car and you do have to take it to the shop and they have to replace the auto part, it is going to be more expensive than it currently is because of the tariffs on the auto parts. A lot of people may not realize this, but we get a lot of our auto parts from Mexico. People keep saying China. We get stuff from all these countries, Canada, Mexico, South Korea, Japan. As you can see, again, we don't produce much here in this country. So that's another way that you could be impacted. I'm also starting to think about gas. Like, we cannot afford to go through this again. At the same time, part of me wonders if this is what needs to happen in order for people to really, really get out in the streets for a full on freaking economic movement. And I say that because I really do truly believe that it is going to take a complete collapse for everyone to finally say, wait a minute. Maybe this is not about red versus blue. Maybe this is about greedy ass people crushing all of us at the bottom. But I think that's what it's going to take. And I think everyone that is working class is going to have to be impacted. It's not going to be just, Black people, Latino. It's going to be everyone who is working class is going to be impacted. And I think that's what it's really going to take to get that type of economic movement like out in the streets. Let's continue on a little bit more here.
The end of her answer there saying they had 70 years to negotiate is really key here, because that's the question now. Where do we go from here? We're going to see, as Vanessa just laid out, all of these different countries likely respond and in kind to these tariffs and retaliate. That could further escalate this trade war now. And so that's really the key question. One thing as well, just as we watch the stock market, is that the president has been far less reactionary to how the stock market is in this term, in his second administration, than in his first. We have been told repeatedly now not to see him react to the stock market directly because of this. Instead, he has said repeatedly now that he believes there will be some short-term pain. So I'd keep that in mind as well as we cover this. Pamela?
All right, Elena Treen, thank you so much. Wolf?
So see, he's even admitting it. He's telling you there's going to be short-term pain. The question is, how short will that be, right? And just a reality, like if you're talking about prices increasing on everything, we were already complaining for over a year about the cost of groceries. Now we're talking about prices increasing on everything else. Anybody getting a raise anytime soon? Anybody? Interesting times.
All right, Pamela, as we mentioned, analysts now say that President Trump's tariffs will likely plunge the global economy into recession this year. Some countries say they're hoping they can negotiate with the U.S., while others have vowed swift retaliation. Listen.
で、アメリカ政府に対しましては、これまで
We had been requesting the U.S. government to review its unilateral tariff measures at various levels, and we are extremely disappointed and regret that such measures have been implemented nonetheless.
Our intention remains to secure a deal, but nothing is off the table.
We will continue to make the strongest case for these unjustified tariffs to be removed from our exporters.
We are going to fight these tariffs with countermeasures. We are going to protect our workers.
The entire global economy will suffer from these ill-considered decisions.
Stock markets across Asia have already tumbled after President Trump's announcement. Now China has vowed to counter what it calls bullying tariffs by the United States. I'm going to go live to Beijing. CNN's Mark Stewart is on the scene for us. Mark, what kind of retaliation potentially could we see from China?
Right, Wolf, good morning. China says it is ready to fight back. But if this is a war, it's not necessarily revealing its plans about how and when it will strike. It certainly has the option, though, of continuing on the tariff theme by instituting more tariffs, more punishment, specifically targeting American farmers. Right now, China imports a lot of soybeans from the United States. There are existing tariffs. Certainly, China could double down on that. But what
Pause. Guys, it's about to get messy. Now we're talking about the farmers. So once again, even the farmers in this country are receiving soybeans from China. Again, we don't produce much here. So that's going to be, the soybeans are going to be more expensive. Farmers don't make a lot of money. Let's just keep it real. If anybody in the chat ever grew up on the farm, you know. And then we get our food from the farmers. I mean, it's a domino effect. It's going to impact like all of us. Another thing I want to mention, which I think you might be surprised by, they even implemented tariffs on Israel. When I say they hit everybody, they hit everybody. They were not trying to be picky with this. So a lot of people are mentioning China, and I don't think they mentioned this in this segment either. A lot of people are mentioning China. I just want to let you know they even put tariffs on Israel as well. Yes, sir.
It's been interesting all day today. China's been very much taking on this diplomatic tone, talking about themes of resolving differences, urging the United States to cancel the tariffs. So it's kind of this wait and see mode as this April 9th deadline approaches. There is certainly an economic side to all of this, but there's also a lot of ego involved. Both Xi Jinping and Donald Trump want to look strong on the world stage. As one analyst mentioned to us today, it's the real question of who will fold first. Nonetheless, as you mentioned, this is creating a lot of anxiety, not just here in China, but across the entire regions. Markets are not looking at this favorably. We saw declines across many of the markets in Asia, including Japan, which of course is home to the auto giants, including Toyota and Honda. Wolf.
Hi, Mark Stewart in Beijing for us. Mark, thanks very much. Pamela.
And stock markets in Europe also took a tumble after President Trump announced 20% tariffs on imports from the EU. So let's go live now to Paris and CNN senior international correspondent Melissa Bell. Melissa, how big of a blow are these tariffs to Europe?
Look, senior European officials been talking to me just a short while ago about the figures. They were handed this 30-page document yesterday. Europeans are contesting a bunch of the figures. They say that it's full of mistakes. There are things that have been seen applied, tariffs applied to them twice. Overall, what Europeans are saying is that if you look at the last 3 rounds of tariffs that have been applied to them, it is 70% of all European goods that head to the United States that are now the subject of tariffs. That is 380 billion euros worth of goods. So it's a huge blow to the European Union. And what's interesting is that the Commission is saying on one hand that it's going to seek to negotiate. The high-level negotiations with Washington begin, we understand, even tomorrow afternoon. But at the same time, they're really preparing for a war. They say that they did not start, but that they are ready to wage. And what they say their biggest asset is the biggest single market in the world. So 450 million consumers that they say they're going to protect, but also use in their fight. So things like, for instance, sourcing soybeans elsewhere than the United States, motorcycles, the sort of goods that you would expect them to seek to buy from other partners in the United States. But more than that, the Commission has a bunch of more measures, retaliatory measures up its sleeve that could hurt, for instance, big tech that make, say, Europeans 30% of their profits in the EU. Europeans are preparing to fight back, and to fight back quite aggressively, Pam.
Crazy times, guys. I told you, total chaos. And I want to look at the math here with you as well, because we're going to debunk some of the math equations that he came up with about how this would work. How much will tariffs raise prices? Let's just go ahead and dive into that. This is coming from economists here. Now, it says here that President Trump announced his latest tariffs on Wednesday. He also ignited an economic mystery. Just where in the world did those numbers come from? He pointed to a new 34% tax on imports from China, the EU, a tax of 20% of Vietnam, 46% of India, etc. You guys can see the rest here. But it says here that Trump claimed that these reciprocal tariffs reflect how other countries already tax American products. That means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. That is not true. These are not reciprocal tariffs. They do not correspond with the tariff rates in other countries. The truth behind where these tariffs came from is far more interesting. And I want to jump down to this part here, the math. This is the Trump administration tariff formula as revealed on Wednesday night by the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. So we're doing some math here. Behind those Greek letters, there's a blunt but understandable approach. Essentially, the equation is trying to answer the question, How high should we set tariffs in order to get Americans to buy fewer foreign products and close the trade deficit? This math says the more of a trade deficit the U.S. has with another country, the higher that tariff should be on that country's products. Here's an example. If you look at China, last year, Americans imported about 439 billion of products from China, mainly electronics, clothing, machinery, while exporting only 144 billion. According to this formula, a 67% tax on those Chinese products should correct this trade imbalance. So it says the math would work like this. The 67% tax should raise the prices of Chinese products in the United States, and those higher prices should discourage Americans from buying Chinese products or products that contain Chinese components. Here's the problem. As I said before, we don't produce much here. This includes materials as well, not just their products. So keep that in mind. Now it says here, but according to Trump's math, the tariffs are supposed to raise prices because those higher prices are the driving force that will close the trade deficit. There is a couple of major assumptions in Trump's math. The biggest assumption involves that the tariffs, how much the tariffs would cause prices to go up. Here, the administration makes an eyebrow-raising admission. It guesses that for every 10% hike in tariffs, there will be a 2.5 increase in prices. Translation: Trump's economists think that about a quarter of his tariffs will be passed on to American consumers in the form of higher prices. It goes on to say here, going back to China, for example, here's how it would all play out. According to his math, the 67% tariff on Chinese products will cause prices of those products to go up by 16.75%. By coincidence, the administration also assumes that for every 10% increase in the price of foreign products, there will be a 40% decrease in how much Americans buy. So faced with a 16.75% higher prices, Trump expects Americans to decrease their purchases by 4 times that amount, which brings us back to the 67%. What is wrong with his math? Certainly, these new tariffs are not reciprocal tariffs, but the math behind them is not wholly invented or nonsensical, despite what some online have claimed. In fact, for the first time ever, the administration is explicitly acknowledging of some of the basic economic logic of tariffs. Tariffs do raise prices, and higher prices do cause people to buy less stuff. And if Americans buy less foreign stuff, then American trade deficit with other countries will narrow. But that's not to say that any of Trump's tariff calculations arrive at the right answer. For one, these are very rough back of the envelope calculations. As laid out, this formula treats every trading partner, every good, and every industry the same. Bananas, oil, clothing, computers, or cars. It doesn't matter what a country sends to the U.S. More importantly, the formula hinges on a big assumption about how much tariffs will raise prices. His math assumes that only a quarter of tariffs would be passed on to American consumers in the form of higher prices. But economists who have studied Trump's tariffs in 2018 on steel and aluminum and various products from China calculate that almost all of those tariffs ended up being passed on to Americans. So, yeah, I mean, it is going to make more people decide not to purchase as much. But there are going to be situations where you're not going to have a choice because, like I said, we don't produce much here. So there are going to be situations where you are going to have to make a purchase. The auto parts is the easiest one to figure out. Like I said before, the auto parts, that's the easy one. Everybody knows you're going to be paying way more for that. So you hope that nothing happens to your car, hoping you don't have to get your car fixed. But then there's other materials that are used in the products that you buy that are not from this country. So the fact that it is April and this is already happening, like this is insane. And I think this is also kind of connected to what happened in Wisconsin a little bit, because the reality is, and I'll get to that when I get to that story, it's not that the Democrats have done something so great to win in Wisconsin during that special election. It's more so that Donald Trump's administration has not fulfilled his promises about the economy that he ran on. So it is his actions with the economy that is pushing people in the other direction. It's total chaos right now. Buckle up. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for becoming a member. Songs for the People. Give them a big whoop, whoop. Songs for the People. Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you for keeping me sane, in touch with the truth, and also finding moments to laugh. Love you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Texas Grown. Always enjoy your blunt take on things. Never was MAGA, but a recent jumper off the Trump train. Thomas Massey, 2028. Get it rolling. Shout out to Keen Collector, who just became a member. It sounds like a pretty cool name, Keen Collector. Shout out to Philip Blair, who's been a member for 1 month, says Sabby Sabs is live. Hooray. Thank you, Keen. I am a U.S. Army soldier originally from Haiti. Please, Sabby, invite Miss Jemima Pierre to speak on the issue. The people there are getting massacred. Yes, she's been on the show. You just reminded me I do need to reach back out to her and have her come back on again because Jemima was great. Lou says Sri Lanka is a major, if not the top exporter of tea. Thank you, Lori. How can you bring manufacturing back to a nation that has no factories? They're all gone. Yeah, that's a good question. It would be done in a different way, I assume. And Christopher says car batteries will be $300 a piece. I could see that happening. See it happening. All right, guys, smash that like button if you haven't done so. And we are moving on to the next story, making good time. Again, it is total chaos that is happening right now, folks. And now we're moving to a little bit of geopolitics. This is crazy. Benjamin Netanyahu made an announcement recently that Israel is going to seize a large portion of land in Gaza. Now, this announcement wasn't done to just a small group of people, but this is going to cause major problems. And I'm going to show you how that would look on the map. But the reality is here, Israel is trying to claim that the reason why they're doing this is because Hamas does not release the rest of the hostages. Keep in mind, there was already an hostage agreement between Hamas and Israel. Israel broke that agreement when they decided to break the ceasefire. I also want to remind you that there hasn't been food into Gaza for almost a month. So Palestinians there are facing starvation. The U.S. government, the Senate, by the way, just agreed to send them more weapons to Israel. And now Israel has announced that they are going to take more of the land. Again, the claim is that they're trying to get the rest of the hostages, but if they really cared about the hostages, they wouldn't starve people in Gaza. Keep in mind, folks, I want us to use our brain. Keep in mind that when Israel withholds aid and food from people in Gaza, they're also withholding that food and that aid from the hostages as well. So if Gazans are starving, guess what? Those hostages are also starving. Doesn't sound like they really care about them, right? But this is what they're moving towards. It is insane. Let's get into this clip here from the BBC.
A strike on a UN clinic at the Jabalia refugee camp has reportedly killed at least 16 people. Local hospitals say a further 15 Palestinians were killed in other strikes overnight. This all comes as Israel's defense minister announces another expansion of the military operation in Gaza. Israel Katz saying large areas of the territory would be seized and added to Israel's existing security zones. And
imagine living in this, guys. Imagine if you walked outside your house and this is what you saw. Imagine like this is your backyard, right? Like who says live like this? Live in that rubble. This is absolutely insane what has happened to Gaza.
And let's just show you as well now Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir Very inflammatory, this visit this morning. He is visiting the Al-Aqsa compound, and that happened a few hours ago. We're starting to get response as well from Hamas, just talking about how inflammatory this is. He walked out of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing coalition back in January over the Gaza ceasefire deal. Lots of strands to bring together, lots of developing stories to bring you from the conflict. So let's take you straight to Jerusalem and join our Middle East correspondent Yolande Nell, who is there. Firstly, Yolande, what are we hearing from Jabalia and the strike on a UN clinic?
Now, notice where she's at, right? She is in Jerusalem. She's not in Gaza. Another thing that they have done is they have made it so that now no journalists can come into Gaza. That's another thing that they're doing. So Israel has been pretty persistent at trying to stop the source of information from being spread so that you don't really see what's happening. It's already too late for that because the world has seen just how awful and horrible Israel has been. So there's no coming back from that. They never come back from this reputation. And the more that they go into Gaza, the worse things are going to be for them, for their reputation. I just can't see Israel as a state coming back from this at all.
Well, what we were told by the local hospital is that at least 19 people were killed in an Israeli strike on that building in Jabalia in the north of the Gaza Strip that was being used as a shelter for displaced people. Now, there's now been a statement that's come out from the Israeli military. It says that it was targeting what it calls Hamas terrorists, says that they were using this site as a command and control center to coordinate attacks. A lot of details on all of this still very sketchy. There is some footage that has come out from the scene that we've not yet been able to verify. It shows smoke billowing from this UN building. There are some very harrowing images that show a small baby among those apparently killed.
And this comes.
You know, we can't show that, obviously, right? But you get the gist of what's happening here. More people have been killed. More people are dying. But I just want to remind you again what Hamas said about that deal. So you have Hamas on one side, you have Netanyahu on another side. Listen to this. Just a reminder.
We've dealt with all proposals with responsibility and positivity with the purpose of reaching our goals of stopping the war. We received 2 days ago a proposal from our brothers, the mediators in Egypt and Qatar. We've dealt with it positively and accepted it. We hope that the occupation, Israel, does not disrupt it or thwart the efforts of the mediators. We've later on responded to the proposal of our Egyptian brothers to form a community support committee to manage the Gaza Strip. The committee will take full responsibility of the Strip in all aspects. And it will be made up of independent national figures, who will take up their work in the committee starting from the moment the agreement is reached in order for us to block any propaganda carried out by the enemy. We've reached advanced stages in these talks and we, along with a number of brothers from the Palestinian groups and factions, have handed over to our brothers in Egypt a group of names to make up the core that holds this community support committee, with independent figures, professionals and experts, in order to complete the formation of the committee. And we hope that our brothers in Egypt can speed up establishing the committee after they received an Arabic and Islamic mandate and support to do so. And we honestly say to those betting that Hamas and the resistance factions can give up on their responsibilities and hand over our people to an unknown fate controlled by the occupation as it pleases. We say to them, you are delusional. It is impossible for us to accept humiliation and disgrace for our people. There will be no displacement and no removal of Palestinians. As for the resistance weapon, it is a red line and it is linked to the existence of the occupation and the establishment of the independent Palestinian state. So as long as there is an occupation, there remains a weapon for the people and state to protect its resources and rights.
That is the part that is very important. Do you hear what he said? As long as there's an occupation, the people are going to protect their area and their rights. So this is very simple to figure out, folks. What they're asking Israel to do is to end the occupation, and they're asking for a Palestinian state. That's what they're asking for. Now, Israel doesn't want to give them that. Netanyahu has definitely never wanted to give them that. Because if they have their own state, that means they also have to have their own military, and they don't want that. Also, Israel and its supremacy, they believe that all of the land is supposed to be theirs. So keep this in mind, folks, right? So this was just 3 days ago. So I wanted to remind you of this, that it is not Hamas that is being the problem here. It was Israel that broke the ceasefire. And then we have that statement from Benjamin Netanyahu, thanks to Dropsite News here. Benjamin Netanyahu says that Israel is establishing a new military corridor across Gaza, the second Philadelphia, declaring that it is now dividing the strip. So you guys got to remember that Gaza is very dense, one of the most dense places in the world. There were over 2 million Palestinians that were living there. Obviously, it's a lot less than that now. If I had to make a guess, I would probably say 1.5 million. I don't believe that it's just 50,000 people that have been killed. I believe over 500,000 people have been killed. And that's based on the math of how many bombs have been dropped, etc. So they are trying to push them into an even smaller area. This is insane. This is his announcement of that here. I'll read it along with you because he's speaking in Hebrew. Last night in the Gaza Strip, we switched gears.
הלילה ברצועת עזה העברנו הילוך. צה"ל תופס שטחים, מכה במחבלים, הורס את התשתיות.
The IDF is seizing territory. He goes on to say they're destroying the infrastructure.
ואנחנו עושים דבר נוסף. אנחנו תופסים את ציר מורג.
We're also doing something else. We are seizing the Morag corridor. Now, if you notice something, guys, notice this message. He is speaking in what do you call it? Hebrew. Yeah. He is speaking in Hebrew. And I was told, and let me know how you feel about this. I was told that when he is speaking in Hebrew, he's speaking directly to people in Israel. And when he's speaking in English, he's speaking to the West. So I don't know for sure if that's true or not, but that's what I was told. So listen to this. He says, we are seizing the Morag corridor.
זאת תהיה הפילדלפי השנייה, ציר פילדלפי הנוסף.
This will be the second Philadelphia, an additional Philadelphia corridor. I'll show you what that looks like in a second, because we are now dividing the strip and increasing the pressure step by step.
צעד אחר צעד, כדי שיתנו לנו את חטופינו. וככל שלא ייתנו, ככה לחץ יגבר.
And he said that'll give us the hostages. As long as they don't give us the hostages, the pressure will increase until they do. Now, this is where you call out the lie, because we all know that they already had a ceasefire agreement, which Israel and Hamas both agreed to. There had already been an exchange of hostages, and there was supposed to be a second phase of that to receive the rest of the hostages. But that didn't happen because Israel broke the ceasefire. This has been the problem over and over again. So like I said, they would rather risk those hostages dying and take the rest of the land than continue on with the ceasefire agreement and get all of them back alive. And that is the truth. Anyone telling you anything different, that's a freaking lie. They would rather risk losing them to take the land than to pretend to continue the ceasefire and do the right thing and get all of them back alive. We are determined to achieve the objectives of the war. We are doing so relentlessly and with a clear line and a clear mission. And with, think this is supposed to be God. And with God's help and that of our heroic soldiers,
חיילינו הגיבורים, אנחנו גם נשיג אותם.
we will also achieve them. So this announcement was heard loud and clear. And if you could look at the comments on Twitter, you get a chance, look at the comments to this announcement. Like I said before, Israel is done. Like they will never come back from this. And I'm noticing some people are just saying Benjamin Netanyahu. This is not just Benjamin Netanyahu. This is what Israel wants. And I think they're trying to be nice because they don't want to say the word Israel, right? Bernie Sanders is one of those people. He really doesn't want to say Israel. Now, he did introduce that legislation today on the Senate floor to try to get people to vote against sending the weapons to Israel. But of course, like most people in the Senate are going to vote to support Israel because they're all bought by the Israeli lobby. But you have to call it out for what it is. It is Israel. Dropside News goes on to show the corridor would cut off the southern city of Rafah, which Israel has ordered evacuated from the rest of the Palestinian territory. And if you look at the picture here, you can see what that looks like. So Rafah is down here at the bottom, right across that, right next to that Egypt border. And then you'll also see that basically what they're trying to do, it says here, morgue access, they're trying to push them into an even more smaller area. It's almost like they're trying to, have you ever watched on TV, like maybe on Animal Planet or something, where people are trying to like push all the pigs or all the cattle, they're trying to herd all the cattle, like get all the cattle in. So they're trying to basically push them in like ants and have them on top of each other. And I have an idea about that. I think the reason why they're trying to push them all into an even more smaller area is so that if they drop another bomb, they kill even more of them. That's really what I believe. I don't think it's so, we're going to push them in a smaller area so we can watch them. No, I believe they're trying to push them in a smaller area so that they're more compact together. And if they drop a heavy bomb, they can kill more of them. No one should approve of this. No one should accept this. And many do not. And you will see Columbia University, the protests are back again. Like there's a number of people who continue to say, why aren't people protesting under Trump? Okay, these people are trolls. Apparently people, I guess, that were upset that Kamala lost, because there's been protests since Trump took office for Gaza. And now you will see that Jewish students at Columbia University, the other day, they chained themselves to the fence, the gate here outside of Columbia, to protest for Gaza. Check this out.
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here today?
Hi, I'm Shay. I'm a Jewish undergraduate at Columbia, and I am here because our classmate, our peer, Mahmoud Khalil, and other peers following him have been detained and targeted by ICE, and our trustees are directly implicated in this. They have been directly implicated by congressmen in this handing over the names to the federal government, and we are here in protest of that to demand that the university tell us which trustees, which members of the university administration are responsible for this, so that we can demand immediate consequences for them and hold them accountable for what they have done to our peer. And we are here specifically as Jewish students because the attacks on our international students, on students of color, have been so fierce, so dangerous, so disproportionate that we are the only students who can be here right now taking this risk standing up.
What does being locked to the gates of this university signify?
Yeah, so
could you just identify yourself?
Sure. I'm Tali. I'm a Jewish student at Barnard. None of us are, until Mahmoud is free, like neither are we. So obviously us doing this we're doing this by choice. We are not trying to compare any
type of action like this to the real danger and of being in an ICE detention center. But symbolically, we want to do something to draw attention to the fact that one of our peers right now is currently being held and facing deportation. And the university was directly complicit in that. And the time to stand is now. This is, as Jewish students, like, we grew up, learning about the rise of fascism, learning about how important it is to stand up when you see injustice in the world. We always say, if looking back at moments in history, saying if only people had stood up, if only people had courage and stopped this before it, and showed that they would not just go along. So we're here to do that today.
Now, I wanted you to see this. Katie Halper was also there. I saw videos of her as well. And I believe Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! Was also present at this demonstration. I want you to pay attention to how corporate media is really not trying to cover this. Why? Because it's Jewish students who are protesting. They're like, no, we're standing up in solidarity for Mahmoud Khalil. We're standing up in solidarity for our comrade, our friend. And so this is why you have independent media, because we want you to see what's been going on there. So yeah, they did this the other day.
We've all heard the poem. First they came for the socialists. First they've come for Mahmoud, and we're not going to let that slide.
And the site you're doing it at, just so viewers understand, is at the gates of Columbia University, yes, with a direct view of the School of International Public Affairs, SIPA, where Mahmoud Khalil was a student.
That is correct, yes.
Do you want to tell us your name and why you're here today?
My name is Aharon Dardik, and I'm here to protest the abduction, detention of my classmate, Mahmoud Khalil. We're not free until all of us are free, and we are here also to clarify that this is not something that makes us safer, this is not something that helps us, and especially as Jewish students, it's important for us to remember who here is actually fighting for the liberation of all people, which includes Jews and everyone else in the world, and who here is fighting for a fascist administration, for the deportation of students, for acting in opposition to everything that we hold dear here at this university as students, and we wish that the administration felt the same. And so we want the trustee who felt differently, who said, I am going to betray my student at my university and give him over to fascist authorities. We want to make sure that that's the sort of person who can be named, and hopefully the sort of person who will not be treated as a representative of the university in the future.
And this is what solidarity looks like, right? Putting someone else's needs before your own. So they're standing up there for Mahmoud Khalil. I do want to make sure I announce this as well. There is a protest this Saturday in Washington, D.C. Also, All Out for Gaza protest. So if you're able to attend that, if you follow Answer Coalition on Twitter, you should be able to see the flyer announcement for that. And the reason why I wanted to show that is to make a point. It takes a lot to put yourself out there before someone else. It takes a lot to say, I know that I'm not the same as this person. I know we may not have the same struggle and the same fight, but I'm going to put their needs before my own. Those students didn't have to do that, but they chose to do it. So yeah, protests are still happening at Columbia University. There's going to be a huge one in DC this Saturday. Please attend if you can. But I got to tell you guys, like, I do not see Israel coming back from this. The fact that they want to take, more of the land in Gaza, it's very clear what they're trying to do. I've told you since after October 7th that this was not about the hostages, regardless of what corporate media tried to tell you. And I think people are starting to see that more and more and more. And I think that Israel is making itself look worse. I just don't understand how people would change their mind about Israel at this point. I really don't. And then you look at everything that's been happening since after October 7th, how they've been they're cracking down on speech, how the cops had gone after the students, the protesters. Like, look at what our government is doing in the name for Israel. Look at how our government is putting Israel first. And by the way, it's been this way. It just wasn't as out in the open. But October 7th exposed that. So it's total chaos right now, total chaos. And I don't know, man. Something has to change. Let's go to some of the comments here. Skylar says they think that they keep going with the charade, but we know too much now. We've seen too much. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Right? You just can't. And that's what I told people about this. Like, once you know this stuff, it's like you don't unknow it anymore. Let's go to some of the comments over here. Shout out to Yemen View, who just became a new member. Give them a big whoop whoop. Yeah. Itole said, what brothers in Egypt? Yeah. Well, Egypt is a puppet of the West, but you're right about that. They haven't really stood up for the Palestinians either. Thank you, Kate. Please invite Chicago reporter William Kelly to talk about the mayor's 6% approval rating and Zionist son of Irgun founder Rahm Emanuel slithering back post-Biden ambassador to Japan. He's got the tea. I'd love to. I can reach out to him as well. I did have on two Chicagoans, Kit and Jamal Green, also to talk about Rahm Emanuel, but I can bring him on as well. Thank you, Aladdin. Risk losing them. Sabby, this was all planned by the Zionists and the Zionist Christians, both trying to fulfill their wicked messianic fantasies. Thank you, 72 Marshflower. USS Liberty was a failed false flag to get the U.S. to hit the ME in 1967 and suggests that Israel did September 11 to re-engage that strategy. Also says Israel used LBJ to kill JFK to set it on track. 10-7 ? Interesting. It's a lot of things, man. Thank you, Kenman. But Sabby, who will hold Israel responsible? Yeah, it's a good question. Gregory says, how do you go from half the land to almost all the land and you're still not satisfied? Skylar says, oh my gosh, they're hurting them. That's exactly what they're doing. Thank you, Kate. All of this at Columbia is because the administration refuses to meet with the students about rebalancing the school's endowment. The news makes it sound like students like camping. Corporate media. Thank you, Louise. I'll be at the protest in DC on Saturday. Enough. I was in the streets for Palestine when Biden was in office. And if Dems woke up and show up, I will welcome them. Yeah, that's the thing. I think that some people thought that because we were going after Biden and Kamala about this, that once Trump was in office, that wasn't going to continue. And you see, that's not the case. People are still protesting. People are still out there. Let's get that comment on Rumble. Thank you. Thank you, Goo81. Remember, Assad must go for Israel's safety. Yet, when Assad was gone, Israel invaded and took over more Syria. Also, new Syrian resistance groups are now Israel in Syria and HTS. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, guys, we're moving on to our next story. Smash the like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. Thank you. And this one is interesting. So, guys, you have to check this one, right? So there was a special election. The Democrats were able to pull it out in Wisconsin, but not in Florida. But let's start with Wisconsin. Wisconsin is an interesting one because Elon Musk poured a lot of money against the Democrat candidate, billionaire doing what billionaires do. And I'm hearing a number of people talk about how, Elon lost in Wisconsin, billionaire money lost. But billionaire money didn't lose. And we're going to get into that in just a second. I'm going to show you that billionaire money just still won, just not his money. So Democrats win in Wisconsin court race, also a big loss for Elon Musk. So this is the woman who won here. This is Susan Crawford. She won that Wisconsin Supreme Court seat there. Billionaire Elon Musk has helped Donald Trump abruptly change the federal government in the opening weeks of the year. Musk and his affiliated group sunk $21 million into flipping the Wisconsin Supreme Court to conservative control, only to see his candidate defeated by 10 percentage points on Tuesday. The losing margin was 4 points larger than that of the only other Republican on the same statewide ballot who was not tied to Musk money. So yes, Elon Musk did do this. He poured millions in here to try to prevent the Democrats from winning in Wisconsin. It did not work. So there was a complete rejection of his money there. But this is also important because Donald Trump won Wisconsin this time around, and the Democrats lost that state. And some people are pointing to this and they're saying this could be a prediction of what could come in 2026 in the midterms, and then possibly what could come in 2028. Now, I will say this. I don't think that Dems won in Wisconsin because the Democratic Party is doing so great or is out there really fighting, despite what people will tell you. I think they won because I think some of the people, particularly working class people in Wisconsin, are not happy with the fact that the Trump administration has not kept his promise on changes of the economy for the better. I think it's those core economic issues. I also think, and I have had this conversation with conservatives as well, that people are getting really tired of Elon Musk, including Donald Trump. Apparently, Donald Trump also has kind of had it with Elon. And from what I understand, from what I read earlier today from Politico, he should be exiting at some point from this administration and just getting out of the way. But there is a lot of turmoil there. So they did win in Wisconsin. Let's go ahead and get into this video here. And then we're going to get into Florida. And I'm going to tell you what happened there because it's a different situation in Florida. Eric, can you get me back on type VNC? Sorry. I think I accidentally clicked the wrong thing. Sorry, guys. This is what happens when you're live. Thanks. I don't know what I pressed, but I clicked the wrong thing. Oh, no, it's not letting me do. I can't. Thanks. Oh, okay. Thank you. Got it. All right. Let's check out what happened here in Wisconsin. Let me just pull this up here. All right. Sorry about that, guys.
This morning, you can find some Democrats smiling, maybe for the first time in the last few months. That's after some good special election results, an outright win in Wisconsin, and some better margins in the state of Florida. So what does it all mean and what really happened? CNN Chief Data Analyst Harry Enton is here. Let's start with a little bit of Wisconsin, right? An amuse-bouche on Wisconsin. This was a race. Elon Musk spent big in this race to sway the Supreme Court race there. And he also went to Wisconsin, which may honestly have backfired.
Yeah, I think it may have backfired. Look, I think if there's one thing we should be taking away from the results in Wisconsin and the polling that we have from Wisconsin and national, if you are a Republican candidate running in a swing state, you don't want Elon Musk anywhere near you. Yes, maybe you like the money, but you do not want his presence in your state. Why is that? Elon Musk, simply put, is an unpopular guy. He is political poison. Look in Wisconsin, his net favorable rating, minus 12 points, 12 points underwater. That is an even worse number when you look nationally. Look at that. It's minus 17 points. So if there's one big lesson to take away from Wisconsin is Elon Musk does not help Republicans when he shows up. If anything, the data suggests that he hurts them. Republicans, stay clear of Elon Musk if you want to win in a swing state, at least in terms of his physical appearance in your state.
All right.
This cannot be said more. And I think Harry, like, this is somebody I would say I think really loves their job. I think Harry loves his job. He gets really all excited about it. Anywho, this cannot be said enough. Elon Musk is a problem. And I had issues with Elon before he even became a part of Donald Trump's administration. As people can see, he is not making things better for the Trump administration. And maybe that's what people needed to see with this special election, particularly in Wisconsin. He went there. Who knows what would have happened if he didn't go there? Let's pretend he didn't show up and he didn't, fork out $21 million to try to stop the Democrat candidate from winning in Wisconsin. Who knows? Maybe she would not have won. But he had to show up with his cheese head and all that kind of stuff. And he really helped the Democratic Party. Now, Elon Musk is very egotistical, and he is not going to believe that he made some type of mistake. He's not going to believe that it's him. He's just going to believe that people are stupid and they don't know any better. Ego. But that's what's happening. And that is a swing state. So yes, that does matter. Again, doesn't mean that the Democrats are doing great. But what it does show you is that when it comes to the economy, Elon Musk, the Trump administration, people are not liking what they are seeing. And Elon is a big part of that.
What did we see in terms of swings in Florida?
What do we see in the terms of swings in Florida? We were talking about Florida 6, and you can see it here. The election margins in the U.S. House District, Donald Trump won the 6 by 30 points. Last night, what did we see? We saw the Republican Randy Fine win by 14. That's a swing of 16 points. But that's not anywhere near the swing we saw in Florida 1. Look at that. Donald Trump won it by 37 points. The Republican won last night, but only by 15. That's a 22-point swing. We're talking about an average 19-point swing from the baseline back in 2024 in just a matter of 4 or 5 months. These are massive shifts. These are massive shifts to the left. Democrats really have to like this, even if the Republicans add it to their majority in terms of what this potentially means down the road. You take this type of swing, you put it on some swing districts, that's very good news for Democrats.
So I think Harry's exaggerating a little bit here, because I don't think I wouldn't say it's as dramatic as he's saying, but there is a difference, as you can see. Donald Trump was able to get plus 37 in Florida District 1, Florida District 6, he was able to get plus 30. Now you see with this special election, in Florida 1, it's plus 15. In Florida District 6, it's plus 14. So obviously not as big as Donald Trump's numbers. But there's a couple of things you do want to also add. Number one, how many people show up to vote in a special election? So there's that. Like, special elections are known to have a lower voter turnout. So Harry needs to add that to his story. But what it does show you, though, is that there is drop off there. And I didn't expect it to be as high as Donald Trump's numbers, but there is some drop off. And some people probably just stayed home. It was just like, I don't know, whatever. But the other part about the story with Florida is that the Republicans still were able to win those seats. The Democrats did not. But the Democrats spent more money. And that's the crazier part. Democrats spent more money in Florida in those races, but they lost. That's the second time that we see this happening. Kamala Harris had more money than Donald Trump did when she was running in 2020, but she lost. So what I think is happening is I think more people are staying home. I don't think more people in Florida decided I'm going to vote for the Democrat in the special election race instead of Republicans. I think more people stayed home. Let's continue.
Now, all of us who have this certain political sickness over the last 24 hours, we're talking about Kansas, Harry. Why are we focused on Kansas?
Kansas is on my mind, and it's not just because I want to go home, Toto. Look at this. Kansas 4th District election margins. If you go back in time to 2017, what did we see? You remember back in 2016, Donald Trump won the 4th District by 27 points. And then all of a sudden, this ruby red district, Ron Estes won in April of 2017, but just by 6. Ergo, a 21-point swing. Very similar to that average 19-point swing we saw in those deep red districts last night in Florida. And then you say, okay, this tells us something about the political environment going into 2018, where Republicans, of course, lost. And of course, generally speaking, we look back, special elections and midterm results. If a party outperforms in a special election since 2005, 5 out of 5 times they won and win the U.S. House. Perhaps last night in Florida is a sign of things to come.
And again, it's an explanation of why Elise Stefanik is not going to be the ambassador to the United Nations. All right, Harriet, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Joining us right now to talk.
Okay, so you guys see that, right? So now they get into this part of the discussion where they talk about how Elon Musk is a problem. I'm going to come back to that in just a second because I do want to pivot to this part here about Susan Crawford. Let's stay on Wisconsin for just a second. She made an announcement to let people know that Elon, your money is not good here.
Someone who watches out for people. But I've got to tell you, as a little girl growing up in Chippewa Falls, I never could have imagined that I'd be taking on the richest man in the world. For justice in Wisconsin. And we won.
Okay, so that is Susan Crawford. She did win, right? But let me show you something about Susan. There's something people aren't discussing. Yeah, she beat billionaire money from Elon Musk, but she also had billionaire money. Susan Crawford, this is the part a lot of people don't want to talk about. They're making it seem like Susan's hands are clean, as if she didn't have any billionaire money. No, she had billionaire money. In fact, who is George Soros and how much did he donate to Susan Crawford's winning campaign? Now, if you watch the show for quite a long time, you guys, a lot of you know who George Soros is. But if you are not aware, let's dive into it. In what became the most expensive judicial race in U.S. history, liberal Dane County Judge Susan Crawford defeated conservative Waukesha? Wisconsin has weird names. Waukesha County Judge Brad Schimmel on Tuesday night for a spot on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Total spending in the race topped $100 million, with contributions from more than 100,000 donors in all 50 states. Check this out, though. Throughout the campaign, Crawford criticized Schimmel for receiving support from billionaire Elon Musk, who is also leading federal efforts to fire thousands of government workers and slash foreign aid. In Wisconsin, Musk paid door knockers to campaign for Schimmel and handed out 1 million checks at a Green Bay town hall days before the election. However, billionaire donors were also a part of Crawford's ultimate victory, namely George Soros, an investor and philanthropist known for supporting Democratic causes. Here's what to know about Soros and other large donors in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. So there's George Soros there. He's an investor, philanthropist. You guys know he built his fortune through a hedge fund. We don't have to go through all of that. How much did he donate? Soros donated $2 million to the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, which then gave that money to Susan Crawford's campaign. So, ladies and gents, her hands are not clean. And this is the part people aren't talking about. Like, everybody's like, billionaire money lost in Wisconsin. No, it didn't. Billionaire money still won. It was just a different billionaire. They're still billionaires, both of them, which means they still exploit labor. Thought I'd tell you that tidbit because I didn't know if everybody was aware of that. I did notice I've seen a couple people covering this and they left that part out. And I was like, I have to let obviously my audience know about that. Now we're going to go back to this clip here a little bit where they get into the fact that they feel that Elon Musk is toxic.
More about this is Democratic Congressman from Wisconsin, Mark Pocan. Congressman, thank you for coming in. This was a big win last night, a win by 10 points for this state Supreme Court seat. What do you take as the biggest lesson or takeaway from last night?
Oh, thanks for having me. I mean, clearly, this not only was a 10-point win in a purple state, but the turnout was so high. It was people coming out to say what Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing is not supported. People don't want their health care and long-term care cut. They don't want education cut. They don't want food assistance cut, all so that Elon Musk and Donald Trump can get a tax cut. This was a very strong, resounding vote, and the vote was absolutely against the Trump-Musk agenda.
Were people voting for Susan Crawford, or were they voting against the influence that Elon Musk was trying to put in this race?
Look, Susan Crawford is a very qualified judge, and she's going to be a great Supreme Court justice. But I think she'll even tell you most people probably couldn't identify her if they were in line with her at a grocery store. That's just kind of the way it happens. But it was clearly a vote against what's going on right now in Washington. The turnout, the intensity was all signs of that as well.
So again, swing state, yes, the Republican Party should take note of that. I mean, it's early. It's just April at this point in time. And then there's something else with Florida that I want to show you as well. GOP retains 2 House seats in Florida as Democrats claim historic improvement. So when we go to Florida, we can also see that the Republicans were able to hold on in Florida. I still say Florida's red. I don't know why people still try to call it a swing state. They were able to hold on to those seats there, but obviously not in Wisconsin. So the way that I kind of see this, they say here, despite the losses, Democrats are celebrating what they're calling historic performances. So they know they lost there, but they say, oh, well, but the Republicans didn't win by as much as they did in 2024. But when you look at how much money was spent, this is the crazy part.
Take a look at just the candidate to candidate fundraising. First, in the 6th congressional district in Florida, you see Josh Weil, the Democrat, basically 10-1 outraised the Republican candidate, Randy Fine, $9.5 million to $1 million. This is as of March 12th.
Pause. So Randy Fine was the one that won. By the way, that guy is a complete creep. Like, even Candace Owens called him out on Twitter. He was applauding the death of babies. He was applauding it. He said, good. That guy's a complete creep. He already has the Israel flag in his office, completely bought off. And Candace Owens was showing was talking about a picture of a dead baby in Gaza, and he was applauding it. So that's who Randy is. And Candace Owens said, I can't believe Donald Trump endorsed this guy. Everybody needs to call this shit out. But the point to make in this video here is that Josh Weil, $9.5 million fundraising, Randy $1 million, and Josh lost. So this is another example where we see once again where Democrats spent more money, but they lost.
Look at the other Florida district, the 1st congressional district. Again, candidate to candidate fundraising. I'll add in the outside groups in a moment. You see Gabe Vallimont, the Democrat, $6.5 million raised. Jimmy Patronis, the Republican, $2.1 million raised. So both districts saw the Democratic candidate outraising the Republican candidate, a sign of Democratic enthusiasm, no doubt. Let's look at the total ad spending, what they do with this money, the candidate money and the outside group money. In Florida 6, $8.5 million total spent, $4.7 million in the pro-fine world. On the Republican side, only $3.8 million, despite the candidate advantage of fundraising, $3.8 million on the pro-wheel side. So Republicans have out-advertised Democrats in Florida 6 because they came in to rescue him. And if you look at the total ad spending in Florida 1, you see a little different story here. $5.5 million total spend, so not as much money as Florida 6. $3.3 million in the pro-Vallimont area, and less than that, the $2.2 million, thank you, for pro-Patronis groups. And that is because that was seen as a safer district, Jake. So there wasn't as much of a rescue operation from Republicans to come in there and spend.
So you see all this money that goes into these political ads, all of these money that goes into these campaigns. And one of the things that I've been saying, and those of us at RBN have said for quite some time, is that this is money that could be put towards mutual aid. All these millions of dollars that are going to political campaigns, we could take that money and we can build clinics. We can take that money and we can put it into housing for people and house those who are unhoused. How about house some of these veterans and get them off the damn streets? Things like that. So it's early on and we see a special election time, but already we are seeing quite a bit of chaos there. If I were the Republican Party, I would definitely pay attention to what's happening in Wisconsin. We've seen it swing back and forth, right? Like in 2016, it went to Donald Trump. 2020, it went to Joe Biden. 2024, it went back to Donald Trump. So these states can change. It just all depends on what? The economy, right? It's the economy, stupid. So that tends to be the number one issue for voters. Interesting times, folks. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to my comrade JB. Hello, everyone. Sabs, I was at UCF for a press conference and they had a list of demands for the administration at UCF. The fight is growing. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Texas. Many were indoctrinated into protect Israel at all costs, but only a handful chose to listen to the Palestinian point of view. I left the Catholic Church over this and went against my family. My heart is holy and just. I can spot wrong. Wow, Texas grown. That's really interesting. There's a number of people that, especially after October 7th, they told me that like they've left like churches or they've cut ties with family members or friends. It's crazy. I mean, I lost a friend that I've had since 2011 after October 7th. Yep. JB says Elon Musk wearing cheese on his head is an insult to cheese. I agree. Justin, thank you. Dems also spent a ton of money in that Wisconsin race, just as much as Musk. I can't wait to see the Dems go the way of the Whig Party. That's right. Roger, Sabrina, hope you're reading this, but Wisconsinites also ratified an amendment put on the ballot by the Wisconsin legislature into the Wisconsin Constitution mandating voter ID laws. Well. Thank you, Jay. Hi, Sabby. JB Pritzker also donated to Susan Crawford's campaign. It was all over the news here in the Chicago area. JB, another billionaire. Another one. And thank you, Courtney. I wish they would stop that Elon, the richest man in the world crap, because he's not. Thank you so much for that. Okay, quick announcement, and then we'll get to the other stories. Doing pretty great with time. We will do call in tonight after the show for the people who are just joined. We're going to do a special one because I won't be live tomorrow night like I usually am on Fridays because I'm getting ready for the documentary filming on Saturday. So I have to prep for that. But quick announcement. Tomorrow afternoon, there will be an interview that will premiere. I recorded the interview. That interview is with Michael Singleton. You may have seen him before on CNN. He's a CNN contributor, but he's also an entrepreneur. So he's a business owner. Michael has a lot of things going on. Now, it is an interesting conversation. I say check it out. So it's basically, I would say we had a healthy debate. A leftist versus a conservative, but I felt like it's not one of those so-and-so destroys so-and-so. It's not that type of debate. It's a healthy debate over policy and different issues. And I think you'll like it. I think you'll also see where there are some areas where we found agreement and then obviously the areas where we do not agree. But I think you'll like that conversation. So check that out tomorrow. That's with Michael Singleton. I think you guys are going to like the conversation. I think you're also going to be interested to hear what he says about, what's going to be beneficial and best for the Black community. So check that out, folks. Check that out. We can go to part 2 when you're ready, Eric. I hope people like that about this show, that over here, you're going to get different things. Like I don't only bring people on this show that agree with all the policy positions I agree with. I believe you need to hear how everybody feels, right? Obviously, I'm not going to bring someone on here who's going to be like racist or anything like that. But I bring people on with different point of views and then try to see if there's somewhere that we can find some type of agreement. So hopefully you get something a little bit different with this show than with others. This is not an echo chamber. I've brought on people who are socialists, leftists, Democrats, although a lot of people leaving Democratic Party at this point. It's funny. Many of those people I brought on that were Democrats are leaving the party now. It's interesting. I brought on people who are conservative. I brought on people from all different political ideologies because I like to learn. And I also realized that the real world is not an echo chamber. The real world is not and that's another thing we talk about during that interview that I think you guys will like, which is that, I don't want to give it away, but the reality is that some of the things that the Democratic Party has done has actually pushed Black men away. That's one of the things we talk about. And people do have to realize that the real world is not an echo chamber. And I feel like the more we continue to try to keep that, the more people you're going to push away, and you're going to find yourself like in this silo somewhere on this island. And I don't see things being won or accomplished like that. That's just my point of view. Everybody in my life doesn't agree with the same policy positions that I have. All my friends are not leftists. In fact, most of them are not. Most of my friends aren't political at all. Most of them don't give a damn about politics. So there's that. That's just the real world. But I think you guys will like that combo. Okay, we're moving on to this Andrew Schulz story. Oh boy. Somebody sent this one to me and they said, Sabby, please. And I said, oh, not Andrew Schulz. So Andrew Schulz is a comedian, and he has made some comments, some jokes in the past that have rubbed some people the wrong way. And I am like this. I believe in free speech. So even if I disagree with the joke, they still have the right to say it. Does that make sense? And I have the right to decide whether or not I want to watch that comedian. It's just as simple as that, right? But Andrew Schulz in particular, he has rubbed some people in the Black community the wrong way when he made this particular joke about Kendrick Lamar. We'll start with that one, and then we'll get to this dispute that Andrew Schulz had with Ryan Clark, who is a commentator at ESPN, over the joke that he made about Black women. So let's get started with this one. This is where some people started to have a fallout of Andrew Schulz. He made this joke about Kendrick Lamar. Listen to this.
Here's the thing. This is the thing that is kind of funny about it, is like, first of all, Kendrick's people and the gang affiliate, everybody, his security, they will kill me. They will destroy me. They'll find me in the street. They'll fucking cut me up. They'll shoot me. They'll do whatever. I'm not a tough guy. Y'all do. But just Kendrick, I would make love to him. There's nothing he could do about it. Just Kendrick Lamar, I would make love to him, and the only thing that he could do is decide if it's consensual or not. That's the only thing he could do. If it's me and Kendrick, this is about physics. It's about physics. I don't even know if I'll get hard. But if we're in a cell, there's a chance that if we're in a cell and we're bored and we done tattooing each other, whatever you do in the cell, and we ran out of board games and we did all the other things, we cleaned everything, and I'm like, man, I might as well fuck you. There's nothing he could physically do to stop that besides put his legs in the air and choose a position. Maybe Mark, I let him choose a position.
Why are you pulling this picture up, Mark? Why are you doing this?
Put up that picture of him and Travis Kelce's girl. Look at that shit.
Oh my God, dude, that's unbelievable.
Yo, I'll be honest. I would go so far as to say, I don't think he could stop most people on the planet from having sex with him. Like, the only reason he got security is to stop people from having sex with him whenever he wants. Now, don't get me wrong, there's people who could fuck me against my will. I was in an elevator once with this drag queen, and this motherfucker was like 6'5".
Oh, yeah.
And we're in the elevator, and we're going down. I'm like, yo, if he wanted to take it, I gotta cause a ruckus or something like that. Like, I gotta have my pants. I gotta do something.
I gotta shit my pants.
So you get the point, right? So it was that joke that he made about Kendrick Lamar, I believe this was a couple of months ago, that gave some people a reason to pause. Basically, what Andrew was joking about was basically sexually assaulting Kendrick Lamar. And part of the issue that some people took with it, and I know Mark Lamont Hill brought up the history about this. He brought up the history of buck breaking, what they used to do to Black men that were slaves. So there were many people, like particularly within the Black community, that were not happy with that joke. So I needed to show you that so that you can understand where some of this may be coming from. Because now there's been another joke that people have a problem with. This time he made a joke about Black women. So what did he say? Let's go ahead and bring this up. Ryan Clark and Andrew Schulz hash out disagreement over Schultz's joke about Black women. So let's just get to what he said here. We make this a little bit larger, and then we'll get into their makeup session or whatever that was supposed to be. So Schulz got heated for an over-the-top discussion of Black girlfriends in which he riffed on the idea of Meghan Markle cleaning up the British royal family and described the Black girlfriend effect as women stressing their boyfriends out and slapping them. Ryan Clark responded to the segment on The Pivot, claiming that Schulz was a racist. The disagreement picked up again in recent weeks as Schulz made the rounds online promoting his latest stand-up special. So he was making jokes there about Black women, and I saw the video for that, and it went to a whole like other level here because Ryan Clark saw it and he had a problem with it. Ryan Clark is a commentator on ESPN. I've watched Ryan Clark for years. Like a lot of these people that have like their own podcast now, I watched them for years on ESPN because I would always watch like the rundowns on like First Take or like Undisputed and stuff like that. So he's in sports commentary, and he decided to speak out about it. I was actually surprised that this, I was like, whoa, Ryan Clark is speaking out, whoa, because other people have come after Andrew Schulz, but I was surprised that he decided to be the one. So I'm going to show you what he said. Yes, Angie's correct. Kendrick called him out too. Yeah, Kendrick Lamar did call him out. So this is Ryan Clark, and I want you to hear what Ryan Clark said.
I didn't care to paint you in any way, which is why I didn't continue talking about you.
It doesn't really matter what your intention was. It matters how you make someone feel. That's what the whole issue is with the joke. Like if you said, I didn't care to do this, I don't care about you, none of that matters. It didn't matter that I didn't care to hurt Black women. I just wanted to make a joke. It hurt them. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter whether you cared to do something or not. What matters is you did something and it had that effect. So ironically, the thing that you're describing to me is the same position you put yourself in. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to tell you is people are going to react however they react, and they feel however they feel, and that's okay. Like as a comedian, I accept that. I hope that people maybe learn more about me and they see that like I don't have bad intentions for people, and I make fun of everybody, because if I don't make fun of one group, then it becomes uncomfortable. Then it starts to become racist or sexist or whatever, I hope that they learn that. But I understand as I get there, we're going to have these little things that we stumble across. And like, unfortunately, people's feelings are going to be hurt. And
so I'll add this part here. I think that when it comes to Andrew Schulz and comedians in general, I can't think of one comedian that hasn't been dragged at some point because of a joke that they made, right? Like people heavily came after Dave Chappelle. Hell, people still come after Dave Chappelle for his jokes. And I think you guys got to ask yourself that question. Like, do you feel that comedians should be able to make a joke about whatever they want? And some people do and some people don't, right? But the reality is that there were a number of Black women that were disrespected or felt disrespected by what he said. And he was like, well, I was just joking. Like, I wasn't trying to like hurt anybody's feelings or whatever. To be fair, I will say he does make fun of everybody. He makes fun of every group. But what happens is that the jokes that he makes about Black people are the ones that go viral on social media, not the jokes that he makes about white people. It's the ones that he makes about Black people that tend to go viral. So just an FYI. So they continue to go on here.
sucks. And if like anybody came up to me like, hey, that thing that you said, I didn't know you were joking. It didn't feel like you were joking. It really hurt my feelings. I'd be like, dude, I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt your feelings again. But if then they said to me, hey, don't you ever make jokes about that again? I go, I can't let you control what I make jokes about. I can hope and aspire to make them so that everybody laughs. But I don't think it's fair to like limit what we can joke about.
I think one thing we often say is like, you can only joke about the experiences you've had. But I don't know if that's true, because like we were laughing at Handyman when we were younger.
Sorry about that for the music there. This brings up a bigger question, and we can talk about this on Call-In tonight. Like, do you think there should be a limit about what people can joke about? Now, I don't draw that line there. I remember I used to, and then I realized just how crazy censorship can get. But I do have that choice whether or not this is a comedian that I want to listen to. And like, if Andrew Schulz came to Boston, he's not someone I would want to go see. That's just me. You go see whoever you want, but that's my thing. Now, what is weird about all this, and this is where it gets crazier, is that even though Ryan Clark, he came out in defense of Black women and said, don't talk about Black women and describe them as abusers. Don't talk about them that way. Black women are, great. Like, stop trying to have that stereotype about them. Even though he said that, apparently, Andrew Schulz brings up something about Ryan Clark where he feels like he's being hypocritical. And I want to get to that part as well. And I do appreciate the fact that they sat down to have this conversation, because this didn't have to happen. A lot of times people just beef with each other back and forth, and they don't actually try to sit down to have a conversation about it. So here comes the hypocrisy, and I want to hear what you guys think about this. Andrew Schulz responds to Ryan Clark calling him a racist by calling him out for saying he protects Black women despite having multiple domestic abusers of Black women on his podcast. So let's get into this part here.
Trend, the thing that's out there in the world, gets the response from him. But he's also just the best to ever do it at talking into a microphone. So like that's like, I think, the most sophisticated way of like going about it. I gotta probably get better at that. But like my initial reaction is going, like, I'll tell you what you wanna know what my initial reaction is, which I think is kind of unfair, but my initial reaction was when I saw you guys talking about it, and I was like, okay, he wants to protect Black women, and this is very important. And then I looked on every one of the episodes that you had to see if there was any guys on here that beat up Black women. Mm-hmm. And there were.
I mean, what can you say? So to this point, Ryan Clark, why, if you had guys on your podcast who had physically beat up Black women, why not call them out as well? See, this is the thing about podcasts, and people got to realize this. The thing about podcasts, right? When you bring on someone that you're not friends with, it's a lot easier to push back on them. When you bring on someone that's your friend or someone that you like more, or let's say that you want to protect, it's harder to push back on them. But what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to try to be fair regardless of who the guest is. That is difficult to do. And not everybody does that. In fact, a lot of people don't do that. You know what I mean? So you can see the difference. And it seems like to me that's what Ryan did. Ryan's going to go into a little bit more detail here. So what Andrew Schulz is basically doing is he's saying, you're calling me out for making the joke about Black women. Okay, I didn't mean to hurt people's feelings. It is what it is. But at the same time, you have people on your podcast who actually were convicted of abusing Black women, and you didn't call them out. So this is where the hypocrisy comes in. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think Ryan should have called out both sides? Do you think Ryan should have said anything about this at all? I don't know. But I do feel like if you're going to come after him, then you got to come after, the other guys as well. Wait till you hear the details about that, though.
And I looked to see if you guys addressed it on the pod, and you didn't. Okay. Now, I also saw you guys had the episode with DeAndre's mom talking about domestic violence. So I was like, okay, this is good and this is powerful, this is important. But my knee-jerk reaction was, man, I get a whole section that's not even part of an episode. Mm-hmm. And these guys who we know have actually, like, for like a joke, and these guys who have actually like hurt Black women and convicted, not allegations, because I don't go off of allegations, I go off of conviction. Everybody can get an allegation, it means nothing.
And then these guys, they don't get anything. So in that moment, I was like, this feels like a clout play. It doesn't feel like the highest priority is protecting these women. So that was my initial reaction.
So I'm gonna say this.
Yeah.
We have had.
Do you guys think he was doing it for clout? Do you guys think that Ryan Clark was like, let me come after Andrew Schulz because I'll get clout for this, I'll get a lot of attention? Or do you think that Ryan Clark, just honestly had a problem with what he said, but maybe he had a little bit more favoritism to the guest that was on his show, right? To make matters worse, what is also kind of weird is that apparently there were parts of that episode he's going to go into detail and talk about, well, we did, bring it up, but it was removed from the episode. And that's also kind of weird. That's kind of suspect. Like, why would you remove that from the episode? Let's continue.
Had people on this show that have been convicted for domestic violence that have pulled it out of the show.
That have pulled it out of the show.
That I have asked about it.
Oh, and then they're like, I don't want it on the show.
Yeah, and I do, because people come on our show voluntarily. Of course. I do ask those questions in respectful ways, right? I'm not.
Let's go back. Let me, guys, again, I do a podcast, so we're going to catch them in a lie here. Listen to this.
So I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
We have had people on this show that have been convicted for domestic violence that have pulled it out of the show.
That have pulled it out of the show.
That I have asked about it.
Oh, and then they're like, I don't want it on the show.
Yeah, and I do, because people.
Okay. First of all, pulled it out of the show. So as the host, it's up to you to decide what you want to keep in the episode or not. When someone agrees to come on, they're pretty much, it's an open book at that point. Unless someone tells you prior to the interview, hey, just FYI, I don't really want to get into like the personal stuff. I just want to talk about football. I just want to talk about, my baseball career and where I'm going forward. Then you got a heads up, then not to bring it up. But if you didn't say that, then you can talk about whatever you want as the host. Also, if they don't want that information out there, when you ask the question, they have the option to say, I really don't want to get into that. But you answered and the information was there. And Ryan is saying, well, they pulled it out. No, you pulled it out. You pulled it out. That's like me saying, blaming Eric and Cory, who are in the background here. That's like me telling, oh, Eric and Cory pulled that out. No, Eric and Cory don't pull out anything I don't tell them to pull out. They don't remove anything I don't tell them to remove. So if the guest had a problem with it, that is something that should have been, especially if you knew you were convicted of that. If the guest had a problem with it, that should have been discussed prior to the interview, not after the interview. Let's go on.
Come on our show voluntarily. Of course. I do ask those questions in respectful ways. Right, I'm not, hey man, you're a woman beater, but I will say, like in one of the instances that was pulled, I said, look, you were convicted of something that no man wants attached to his name.
Amen.
And they answered it. We talked to their people. I was like, man, the answer was good, and they pulled it out of the show. So we've had that happen. We also had an instance with one of our guests who was talking about sexual assault, and he talked about it in a way that almost said that, okay, how do we blame the women? And I addressed that as well.
Yeah.
So as far as for me, I try to address it in every opportunity that I get a chance to with them. Yeah. I try to ask them questions in ways that they get to tell their side of the story.
Yeah.
When they sit with us, I do not bash them over the head with it, condemn them, or judge them in the moment.
Yeah.
I do try to have a conversation about it.
We're all like hypocrites. Like nobody's perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like I've had people on the I've had a president on the podcast. Like nobody's killed more people than a president. You know what I mean? Like anybody who sat down, if you sat down with Obama, hundreds of thousands of people are dead because of decisions that he thought were in the best interests of America, right? Same thing if you sat down with Clinton, you sat down with anybody, right? Like I did a buddy of mine's podcast and he brought up the fact that I had Alex Jones on my podcast. He did one of the most heinous things in history where he said that those kids were faking it at that school shooting. Remember that? Like that's a heinous, Sandy Hook. I mean, disgusting, heinous. I had a buddy of mine, I went on his podcast and he was like, yeah, I can't believe you did that. That was like so f***ed up, like what he did to those kids. And I was like, you visited the Pope. You know what I mean? Like, they were protecting people f***ing kids. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you had the opportunity to go meet them and you're like, I'll do that. And like, they were literally protecting priests that were having sex with children. Like, I can't think of any, like, so we can always find the moral equivalency or the moral high ground, which was a thing that I did with you guys, but I hesitated to like go out and talk about that publicly. This is why I did, is because the point of that is not to protect those women or to protect the children. The point of that is to make you feel bad or me feel good. And now we're using victims as a tool. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that I said before. It gets murky because the reality is, like, do we want to tell comedians what they can and can't say? Or do we want to tell anyone what they can and can't say? It gets murky with that. I don't agree with a lot of the things, some of the things that some of the comedians do say, you know. But I also have the choice whether or not to watch that person. Like, that's also how I kind of see it. But I think there was a point mentioned there about, Ryan and Ryan's decision there to remove, they removed certain parts of that show or whatever. But I think the point that Ryan was trying to address is that, hey, I think you may have offended some people with your comments. And, that's what my criticism was about. Now, I will say this. This is called being an adult, sitting down and having a conversation with that person that you critiqued face to face and just like, let's hash it out. So that I'm glad that they were able to do that, because oftentimes that's not the way it goes. Not the way it goes. So it's tricky. Because again, like I said, you gotta be careful when you say, well, I don't want comedians to say this, this, and that, and da-da-da. It can get kind of murky. And then at the same time, there is something to be said for the fact that Andrew Schulz has rubbed Black people the wrong way. And this ain't the first time. There have been a number of times where people have specifically said to me that they not really trying to watch Andrew. Not trying to watch Andrew. But I'm glad they were able to sit down and like hash it out like adults. I think that that's good. And that podcast, The Pivot, is Ryan Clark's show. So I do want to say this part. We're not talking about ESPN. So the comments that were made about you had those guys on your show that did this, that wasn't ESPN. That was his own podcast, which is The Pivot. So just something to keep in mind. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you, Justin. You did bring on that racist piece of shit, Dr. Shiva, that one time Sabby. I didn't know he was that way. I didn't know he was that way, Justin. Oh my God. Bridget, they stay talking about Black women. Rich, Andrew Schultz's current net worth is estimated to be around $4 million. Skylar, comedian is a loose term when it comes to Andrew Schulz. I see people have different opinions about this. Lance, it's not even a joke. He was just saying Black women are angry and violent. Fuck him. TD, I don't believe in censorship, but do make it funny. Common Sense says Richard Pryor was actually talented and knew how to structure a joke so it was not blatantly disgusting. Itole says Ryan should have been consistent. Jamie, Sabby, I work for an entertainment company and he's telling the truth. Our communications department handles that stuff after the interview. They'll make sure it doesn't air or whatever part is pulled. Yeah, but this is Ryan's podcast though. Like you would think that he would still have some type of creative control. Thank you, Trust and Success. The comedian has a point. He's super corny, but has a point. We shouldn't censor comedians. It's already bad enough the government is policing speech. And thank you, Brian. Comedians will always say what they want. People need to change the channel if they don't like it. Censorship versus free speech. People also need to know RC is known to be very easily triggered. Interesting comments. Let's go to Rumble. Hey. Thank you, Goo. Wow. Andrew Schulz has a pathetic little John doppelganger on his pathetic show with a hyena as his sidekick. Wow. Okay. Oh my God. We're moving on to something else. Again, total chaos. It is Thursday, so it is time for the craziest story of the week. This time it's one story. We're talking about one because this one I have quite a bit to say about. We got to touch on this story, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine having a job interview at McDonald's. Now, at the same time, you don't have anyone to watch your kids. So you bring your kids to McDonald's with you. You have them sit inside of McDonald's, and then you go to the interview at the same McDonald's. Now imagine being arrested for doing just that. That is what happened to a Georgia dad. This story is making a lot of waves, and it's making people ask questions and think about when is too young to leave a child alone. Let's get into this. I'll tell you about my perspective, the experiences that I had as well. Georgia dad arrested for leaving young kids at McDonald's to attend job interview. Ex-NFL star Antonio Brown vows to help the family. So shout out to Antonio Brown for stepping up to do this, man, because you didn't have to do this at all. But this story is making a lot of news, folks. A Georgia father of 3 was arrested for leaving his young children unattended at McDonald's to go to a nearby interview. Chris Lewis, 24 years old, allegedly walked with his 3 kids from his apartment to the restaurant in Augusta just before 4:30 p.m. on March 22nd. The youngsters, ages 1, 6, and 10, spent their time alone in the restaurant, which has an indoor play area attached to the dining room. So this is Chris Lewis here, again, 24 years old, had a job interview at McDonald's. Lewis was seen leaving the fast food joint, returning shortly after to check on his kids before leaving again. A worried customer told the police, the outlet reported. Richmond County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the restaurant and located the unharmed, unaccompanied minors who remained inside the store until their father returned. Lewis returned to the McDonald's just before 6:20 p.m., where police confronted him for leaving his children alone in public. Lewis, who doesn't own a car, told police he left his children behind because he didn't want them to walk back to his home as he went to the interview. Police waited inside with Lewis until the children's mom arrived to take her kids home. Lewis was arrested and charged with deprivation of a minor. Why crazy shit always got to go down at McDonald's or the Waffle House, right? People always want to call the cops at McDonald's or the Waffle House. The news of Lewis' arrest got the attention of former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Antonio Brown. Story caught me by surprise. A dad just trying to find a way to make money for his family. I know he shouldn't just leave his kids, but some people don't have the means for babysitting. That's coming from Antonio Brown. He wrote that on GoFundMe. Brown says he hasn't spoken to Lewis yet, but he hopes to talk with the father. The 36-year-old claims said they set up a fundraiser with the help of GoFundMe to ensure the money would go directly to Lewis. Chris was on the pursuit of happiness, and sometimes people just need help. Antonio Brown wrote that on X. The father of 6 has donated $1,000 himself. So that was Antonio Brown there trying to help him out. And there's a panel discussion about this, and I want to dive in and say something here. First and foremost, we live in a society of people who don't want to be independent. And let me get into what I mean about that before we get into this panel discussion. I'm an older millennial, and I think some of you that are Gen X may be able to identify with me about this as well. When I was 10 years old and one of his children were, I not only was babysitting my cousins from time to time, but I got off the school bus, walked home from the school bus stop, unlocked the door, let myself inside my parents' house, locked the door, made myself a snack, sat down and did my homework until my parents came home from work when I was 10. So I grew up during a time where kids were taught to be more independent. And at 10 years old, I didn't have a babysitter, okay? My parents ain't had it like that. I didn't have a babysitter. I was an independent kid, and my parents taught me how to do what I needed to do and go where I needed to go. So when I heard this story, it was very weird to me. I'm like, one of the kids was 10? So the 10-year-old is not allowed to babysit their brother and sister? What has happened to society these days? I just don't understand. I don't get this. This story made no sense to me. There are many of people like me and my friends who at 10 years old were pretty independent. And we did babysit our brother or our sister or our cousins at 10 years old. So it was very weird to me. We didn't grow up with lawnmower parents. We didn't grow up with helicopter parents. That didn't even exist back then. For those who don't know, helicopter parents are parents that kind of hover over the children, kind of watching everything they do, their every move. Lawnmower parents are the ones who literally move obstacles out of their children's way so they don't have to deal with challenges and obstacles in life. These are things that came up later on. And back when I was growing up, that was not a thing. Number one, we didn't have social media. Number two, if you had a cell phone, not many people had cell phones at that time anyway, but we knew what to do. So imagine no cell phone, no social media. Yet I had no worry, no fear, walking home from the bus stop, going home, unlocking the door. My parents told me this is where we keep the spare key just in case. And I mean, back then that was normal. Nowadays, someone would have called the cops on my parents. Now, that's important when we get into this panel discussion, as they have different opinions about this. We want to get into this. This is Isaiah Factor Uncensored. Listen to what they have to say.
Interview ends badly for a man in Georgia. Chris Lewis was arrested March 22nd. Police say he left his kids in a McDonald's by themselves while he went to an interview for a job. He reportedly told police he did not have a car and lived nearby. Lewis said instead of making his three kids, who are 1, 6, and 10 years old, walk home alone, he decided to make them stay in the restaurant. There's been a lot and ongoing debate about this. If we can hold that, Sonora, grab that for me. A lot of debate about this on the Isaiah Factor Instagram page. We asked, what was the appropriate age for kids to be left unattended? 41% say 10 to 12. 39% say 13 to 15, and 20% say 16 years and up. Our guests are here on the Factor.
So let's just pause here for just a second. So the majority of the people that were polled said 10 to 12 years old was the appropriate age for a child to be left unsupervised. And it's just, to me, and the way that I look at it is like this: even if you disagree, he has to go to jail for it. Here's someone who was trying to get a job, trying to do the right thing so he can take care of his children. And sometimes people don't have the means. They don't have the money to have a babysitter. They don't have the resources. They don't have that community that, like, my parents had when they were growing up. And that's become less and less. So a lot of people don't have it. People have to realize this is a class issue. And especially for a lot of us, growing up while Black, this was not uncommon. It was not uncommon for us to watch ourselves. It was not uncommon for us, our parents, to raise us to be a little bit more independent so that we knew what to do, what we need to do. I mean, come on. I knew how to make breakfast. I knew how to make lunch. I knew how to make dinner as a kid because my parents taught me. Nowadays, we have a lot of kids. People don't want to teach them how to do anything. Don't let them do this. They might get hurt. Oh my God, don't ride your bike over. You might get hurt. Something could happen. Don't do this and what. When I was growing up, it was no, oh my God, you might get hurt. It was toughen up. Life is tough. The first time a kid punched, this was when we were in elementary school. The first time a kid punched me. We were elementary school. We were fighting over a Twinkie. And I still never forget this. When I came home, my dad said, I showed my dad, told him what happened. And my dad said, did you get any licks in? And I said, I think so. My dad said, let's go over to their house. Let's talk to their parents. Because my dad taught me how to fight. My dad taught me how to defend myself. We went over there. We talked to their parents. And my dad said, when we got back to the house, he was like, yeah, she got a couple of licks in back. Nowadays, I feel like we're raising kids to just be defenseless. Let's go on to the panel.
Uncensored to talk about this, we have with us Davenport case manager Jay Bailey, therapist Dr. Bernadette Smith, and parent Matilda Saragosa. Glad to have you all on the Factor Uncensored. So, Matilda, let's begin with you as a parent. Your thoughts about this situation?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I feel there's still a lot of missing information for me to make that full assessment. Like, what was the length of time they were left alone? Were they inside of the McDonald's? Were they in the car? Can you clarify that for me really quick?
What we know is he was there from the kids were there from 4:30. He returned at 6:18. Okay. And then the mother was on the way as well, but we don't know if she was called by police or him after the fact, or if she was on the way anyway. So there, like you said, there are still a lot of unanswered questions.
Correct. I feel like at some point we encourage the community to stay vigilant and report these incidents, and I feel like that's what they did. But at the end of it all, like, what was the backstory to it? Did he intentionally just go in there to leave an application and they asked him to stay for an interview and it prolonged the waiting period for the children? You know, were they inside or outside? Temperatures? Like, what was the damaging? If they were inside of the public setting, was it a safe setting? Mm-hmm. You know, there were so many things that we could still try to figure out in order to rectify or remedy this situation.
And Dr. Smith, a lot of people are cautious on how they approach this report because a lot of parents can see themselves in a situation where you don't have someone to provide for your children, or you can't afford a babysitter, and you have to provide for them, and you're caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. Yep.
No, so this is where the community support comes in, right? This is where we talk about that community building, which some people just don't have. And look, power to him, because he was trying to, let me go get a job, let me do the right thing. He could have easily chosen other options, which some people do. He could have chosen other options that were more dangerous. But he said, no, let me go do the right thing. Let's try to get, this job. Obviously did not have a babysitter. And here's the reality, folks. This is also a class issue. There are a number of people that I would consider working poor that can't find a babysitter. Number one, because it's too expensive, or number two, nobody just seems to be available. Also, nowadays, people are crazy. You can't just leave your kid put it this way, as a 10-year-old, if you have a 10-year-old kid, they're probably safer being by themselves than you leaving them with someone that you don't really know. But oftentimes the community isn't there. So when people say it takes a village to raise, where's the village? When my parents were growing up, they said everybody knew everybody on the street. My parents grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. Everybody knew everybody on the street. They knew what you were up to. My mom said that if she got in trouble, her mom would already know it before her mom got home. That was community. Everybody looked out for each other. People don't do that anymore. People on their phone. Everybody like this. Everybody like that. I don't know. So we just don't have that. A lot of people don't even know who their neighbors are. Who lives next door to you? Do you know? I mean, and I'm not trying to blame you, but I'm just saying society has changed. So now you don't have that village to help you with your kids. What do? Let's go on.
It's very tough. And I think that what this story is showing is when you do not have a village and when you do not have means and resources to provide for that care, what then are you doing? And so to your question, one of the things that I heard was that he left the kids in the play place. So they were playing at the McDonald's playground area. Again, Was that maybe best judgment? Who knows? But what we also know, I feel it comes from a space of desperation. And so when you don't have the resources, when you don't have access to a village, and you're trying to further your family by getting a job and doing the things in which we're told to do in society, and then he's penalized, again, being able to look at what resources can we then provide. Like for example, in Houston, there's the House of Tiny Treasures that provides childcare for people who are unhoused and kind of in that space.
All right, Jay, let's bring you in. Your thoughts on this as an expert looking from the outside, and your thoughts about parents who may be put in a position like this or put themselves in a position like this, depending on which way you're looking at it.
In this situation, I do think that we do need more information to properly assess his opportunities and his resources. But I do think that it takes a village, and so we need to call on our village when we do need help. And you can always contact, foster care agencies or just any social service setting that could help you in situations like that.
No, do not contact social services. Hells no. Do not contact social services and say, can you watch my kids? Might not get them back. Oh, this is just telling you from experience. But it's true, guys. Listen. Look, I live right outside of Boston. I've seen kids younger than 10 get on the T by themselves. They have their little Charlie card. They swipe it. They go get on the subway by themselves. When I lived in New York, I saw kids who were younger than 10 who got on the bus and got on the subway by themselves to go to school. We have to keep this in mind, that people have grown up. And I think you would see that if you go to New York, like you go to Boston, go to Baltimore, you will see the kids are a little bit more mature. That they have to, especially if you're living in that city life, you got to know how to navigate these things. You got to know how to use the subway. You think all the kids in Baltimore got a babysitter? Hells no. So I think these things are important. And I think there's been a lot of coddling of children nowadays in society. And so it's looked down upon. I knew people who were babysitting. Like I said, I babysat at 10 years old. At 10. So we don't have the village. We don't. Most of us don't. There's a show on Netflix. It's called Sweet Magnolias. It's a wholesome show. I watch it because it's wholesome. Like there's nothing on Netflix like it. It's kind of corny and cheesy, but it's also wholesome, right? And it's about people. They live in this town called Serenity. And you know what I love about the show? Everybody in the town look out for each other. Everybody in the town, everybody's looking out. How's so-and-so doing? How's your restaurant doing? How's your this? How's your that? Da-da-da-da. That's what I love about the show, because I don't see that in real life. I don't see it. A lot of people stay to themselves. And so what are you supposed to do? So it's a class issue. He needed help. And it's unfortunate that nobody was there to help at that time. Free that man. There's a number of people on social media. Kim Iverson said the same thing. She said, when I was 10 years old, I was babysitting my siblings like by myself. Like a number of people, conservative, leftists, etc., who totally don't agree with this. They're like, what the hell is going on? We have to do better. As a society, we have to do better. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Bum, 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 bum. Cloudness said kids are so soft nowadays. I'm telling you, man, y'all think I'm joking. My dad taught me how to fight. He said, I need to show you how to defend yourself. Thank you, Dana. Sabby, I'm a baby boomer latchkey baby. Yeah, they used to have a saying called the latchkey kids. Thank you, Dana. Dwayne said no one fucks with Sabby's Twinkie. That was my dessert that my mom put in my lunchbox. I was looking forward to that Twinkie. I haven't even had a Twinkie. I haven't had a Twinkie in a long time. Kerpoof, who got the Twinkie? He did. He took it. He took my Twinkie, and then he took it and he smashed it in his mouth like this. He was like, nah. Victor said, when I was 12, I would cook meals for my younger sister before mom got home. Interesting. Thank you, guys. All right. Total chaos. That is the theme tonight. If you haven't done so, smash the like. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. And we're moving to our final story. And I said we will do call in tonight, so I'm doing pretty good with time. And that's the Cory Booker story. Okay. There are a number of people that are applauding Cory Booker for speaking for 25 hours. I got to admit, that shit's impressive. I can't do it. He broke Strom Thurmond's record for the filibuster. But was it really a filibuster? There's a number of people who are talking about the things that he did say, but they're not talking about what he did not say. And that's what we're going to get into here. Nina Turner had a really good point. Technically, this is not a filibuster because it's not blocking any specific nominee or legislation. I'll repeat. Technically, this is not a filibuster because it's not blocking any specific nominee or legislation. Thank you. Yeah. But that's what corporate media, everybody was calling a filibuster. What Cory Booker was doing is he was speaking against Donald Trump's agenda, but not a specific piece of legislation or a nominee, just speaking out against Donald Trump's agenda. And I keep saying that because when I tell you what he did not talk about, that is going to be important. So that's what Cory was doing there. We're going to go into some of the conversation here after him talking. And Cory, to me, it just,
Would you be?
Cory, to me, is just always so fake. Like, I swear to God, if there was an Oscar for politicians, Cory would probably win that. I met Cory Booker in 2020. I saw him speak in New Hampshire. He was running for president then. And that's really what this is about, folks. Don't get it twisted. This is really Cory Booker trying to make himself look like, hey, I should be the one that you should want to run for president in 2028. That's really what I think this is about. Just keeping it real. But I saw Cory, and I've never seen someone so fake before in my life. First of all, you don't have to do this to me every time you're speaking, You really ain't got to do that. It was just overdone. So he was just very fake. And people could tell. I think people in New Hampshire could tell that, right? So after his 25, here he comes in here, and everybody's making Cory Booker look like some hero. I almost said some whore. I'm so sorry. I was trying to say I meant hero.
You willing to share what you've heard back from your constituents, from citizens? Because now you've had some time to digest the response.
Not as much. My staff has sort of been dosing out some things to me as I've tried to, just physically recover, even though my spirit is really soaring. Sure. The gratitude from people whose voices I've elevated, who write to their senator with really personal, painful stories, to know that those people were in some ways affected by the fact that I read their letters and told their stories and talked to their pain and anger. That relieves me. I just want to make sure that I'm always respecting people who tell me about their challenges with Parkinson's or dementia or their challenges with disabled children. But to hear from Americans that feel really ignited and inspired, especially those who aren't that political or not that kind of base partisanship. That was really what I was dreaming of, is that somehow I could strike a chord that wasn't the normal left-right debates, but that in many ways could lift us beyond those to talk about a larger moral moment.
Okay, you were able to read letters. Whoopity-dip-dip-doo. Because some people are saying, yay, Cory Booker's out there fighting like hell. Fighting for what? You're not even speaking against said legislation. There was no legislation on the table that you're speaking against. What are you fighting for? That was Cory Booker trying to make himself look good, and what he is hoping would elevate even more his political career. That's really what this is about. Let's not forget Cory Booker moved to the projects in Newark, New Jersey, so that he could try to win that mayor race. Don't forget that. People, I watched the whole story about Cory Booker. Yes. Before I went to see him speak, I watched the whole story about Cory Booker. You know, and I always had this kind of feeling about people who are pretty well off financially and they go and move to a poor areas. It's kind of like, I'm not feeling you. I know what you're trying to do. Right. So I watched that whole story, and his political stuff, especially when he was running for mayor, that wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy fight for him. But eventually he got hooked up with the right lobbyists and the right donors, and he moves into the Senate. And he's very fake. If you try to ask him about Gaza or anything like that, he'll just pretend you're not there, ignore you, walk away. He's very fake. And the more I saw who he really was, I said to myself, damn, I see why Rosario Dawson left you. I see why Rosario pieced out.
We showed some of the international reaction, which again is not how the Senate, let alone the Democrats in the minority, have been heard from over the last months. You changed that. Here's some more of the political reaction we've seen.
What Cory Booker did over the last 24 hours may have changed the course of political history, but he struck the kind of tone that grassroots Democrats are looking for.
By the way, Frank Luntz is also an AIPAC puppet. That guy who was just speaking there, also AIPAC puppet.
Democrat actually doing something. Wow. I mean, wow. That's the longest someone's held Congress captive since January 6th.
We need that kind of energy coming from the Democrats. People feel that no one is fighting for them. And when I look at Cory Booker, I feel like Cory Booker is fighting for them.
So what this compilation here shows me is that once again, corporate media received the same PR talking point. You guys ever notice they say the same things, right? They work in tandem together. So it's like whatever The View says, you'll hear MSNBC say it, CNN will say it, Charlemagne will say it. They all have the same talking point. That in itself should tell you something. And now their talking point and their idea is to persuade you that Cory Booker is doing something, that he's really out there fighting. But even Nina Turner told you herself that that's not a filibuster because he's not grandstanding against any type of legislation or nominee. What I'm trying to tell you is that they're tricking you. They're tricking people. They want you to think, oh my God, he really did something. I saw it today on Facebook. Even some of the people I went to high school with, they were like, I hope he runs for president. Oh my God, did you see what Cory Booker did? I hope he really wins. And I'm like, and you guys fall right for it. That's exactly what they want you to think. He ran for president in 2020. Why you didn't say nothing about him then? Why weren't they pushing him then? Everyone asked these questions. Why weren't they pushing him in 2020? Why wasn't corporate media pushing him in 2020? That's how the media works. So Cory is like out there and, you know, his eyes all wide open and super pumped and excited. And he's like, oh my God, this is so great. I love that people are doing these things, yada, yada. So let me tell you what he didn't talk about. He is out there speaking against Donald Trump's agenda, rightfully so. But one of the things that's part of Donald Trump's agenda is the removal of the Palestinians from Gaza. One of the things a part of his agenda is backing Benjamin Netanyahu and his destruction of Gaza right now and him taking over Gaza. Don't forget, there has not been food entering Gaza since A little over a month. It's been about a month now. They are starving. And when Cory Booker got up there to speak, he decided to speak in favor of Israel. He didn't say anything about them damn kids in Gaza. When Cory Booker was up there talking for 25 hours, did he say anything about reparations? When he was up there talking for 25 hours, did he say anything about police brutality? Did he say anything about impoverished Black communities? Did he say anything about people trying to just live in this country and they're living between paycheck to paycheck? Did he say anything about that? Because here's the thing. Even Wyatt Reed points this out. Hours Yap 25. Pro-Israel pins dawned 1. Boast about Abraham Accords 1. Mentions of Gaza Holocaust 0. Now here is Cory Booker. When he's up there speaking, of course he has on the pro-Israel pin. Okay. So for the people saying that he's out there championing people and he's some damn fighter, if he really out there championing and fighting for the oppressed people, why does he have on the Israel pin? Why does he have on the pin for the state of Israel? Why does he have that on? Why doesn't he have on a pin of a Palestinian flag? You can't sit up here and say you're standing up for the oppressed if you stand with the oppressors. You can't say that. Okay. But what did he say? What did he go into? Oh, look at this right here. I am grateful that we were the founders of the Black Jewish Caucus, the Juneteenth Cedars coming up, Booker told Rosen, referring to a group that formed in 2021. I'm going to put this on as you have it on. And as I think about Eden Alexander and all those who are suffering, I'm just so grateful for our friendship and what we've done against anti-Semitism, what we've done for the Abraham Accords. Did Cory Booker, when he was up there for 25 hours, did he say anything about people, Black people suffering right here in this country? How you suffering when everybody in your country got health care? How you suffering when everybody in the country is able to go to college for free? How are you suffering if you are occupying another group of people? How are you suffering if the United States is giving you $3.8 billion a year? Because you see, all of a sudden, the media wants you to draw your eye to Cory Booker, and they want to show you that this is the type of person you should vote for. This is the type of person that we want to see run for president, as if he didn't already run before. We want to see him run for president, and that's the person that can help the Democrats win. They want to convince you of this. And for the Black folks, they want you to vote for him because he's Black. That's it. That's it. Even though you see who he chose to prioritize when he spoke for 25 hours, right? They want you to vote for this guy who is sitting up there taking all this money from AIPAC. And that's just some of it. He's very corporate. There's nothing grassroots about Cory. How much he's received from the pro-Israel lobby. They want you to believe that this guy who actively went to an AIPAC meeting and told them how to recruit Black people. They want you to believe that this is the person that's going to look out for the Black community. And I can hear it right now. God damn it. You should vote for Cory Booker because he's Black. He's Black just like you. Didn't we do this with Barack Obama? How'd that work out? Who did he look out for? Cory Booker don't care about you. Cory Booker cares about his own political career. They want you to believe that this guy who was willing to sell you out to these Zionists, they want you to believe that he is going to be best for the Black community. Watch him in action.
A couple more questions. One more question, Barry. Barry says, Barry has spoken. This is a lot of pressure. The last question. I know. You spoke a lot about hope, and obviously you are someone who is very pro-Israel. We also heard beautiful remarks about some of the students on traditionally black colleges, leadership, and what they've done. But could you give us your own evaluation of the African American leadership in the United States, and what is their feeling about Israel? And because oftentimes I think locally outside of New York, we find that there is becoming greater identification not with the history of Israel and what Israel's become, but with the sufferings of the Palestinians without any really understanding of the history with Israel.
So let me pause here for a second. This is them openly admitting that the Palestinians are suffering, openly admitting that in this AIPAC meeting. And they have this clown, Cory Booker, up there, and Cory Booker is supposed to help them get black people to move away from the Palestinian people and support the cause of Israel. They want people who have been oppressed to move away from other people who have been oppressed to support the oppressor. And someone like Cory was willing to do it.
African American leadership. Well, look, blacks are always going to be, as Jews are, I think, always going to be some of the first to sign up to address the suffering of others. And we shouldn't be afraid of that within the black community, within the Jewish community, within whatever community. But when it comes to justice for Israel and understanding any suffering within context, we need to be more vigilant than we're being right now. And so within the black community, and I say this all the time, and you ask specifically about black leadership. First of all, this excites me like never before, because Obama is a raindrop compared to the storm that's coming of young black leaders around this country who are phenomenally qualified, phenomenally experienced. You're going to see more black governors, you're going to see more black senators, you're going to see critical that you continue to find, not them when they're Congress people, you find those black leaders when they're 22-year-olds at Oxford, when they're 24-year-olds as a city council president.
So do you see what he did? I know I've shown this video on this channel before, but he's basically telling them, go find black people when they're in college, or go find them when they're city council. Go latch yourself onto them then. Don't wait till they're a congressperson. This guy is a fucking clown. He's literally sitting there selling out his own people to a Zionist supremacist state. And he don't give a damn because he paid. So I don't give a damn. All that work that you supposedly did in Newark, Cory, I don't give a damn. That shit don't matter no more. You sold out your own people to supremacy so that you can still cut a check. Like, this is seriously unreal. You wouldn't think you would see this on camera, but here we are. Here we are. I'll let this wrap up here.
And you go to them then and say, come to Israel. Let us start showing you what this is about. That's what a key mission of AIPAC that we must continue, which is finding future leaders, young leaders in America. I met the
Yeah. So black people are not stupid. By the way, that film that was captured by Zed Gilani, journalist, he was there. So he captured that information. And then here's another one. I think I have the one of Cory Booker with Rabbi Shmuley as well. Let me just double check. If not, I can just pull it up because I think people need to see this as well. This guy's a whole ass clown. And that's what corporate media, they want you to believe that this is the dude. Like, this is who you need to be looking at right now. So look at this. And again, Wyatt Reed was really on it. If you were surprised to find out Cory Booker had a rabbi, wait till you find out who it is. Cory Booker's rabbi has notes on Cory Booker's 25-hour speech. Rabbi Shmuley helped launch the senator's career and taught him thousands of hours of Torah. So you guys see the connection here? Everybody see what's going on? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So I don't give a damn that he spoke for 25 hours. This is his friend. That's his buddy. This is his friend. That's his buddy. Do you guys understand? Black people, Cory Booker is never going to prioritize you. This is why I say black faces in high places are not going to save you. That's his friend, the supremacist. These politicians are jokes, and corporate media doesn't want to tell you this. And they don't want to tell you he didn't say anything about Gaza. He didn't get into the issues that black communities have to deal with. They just want you to know that he spoke longer than Strom Thurmond. Congratulations. You spoke longer than a racist. Congratulations. It is a toxic, crazy hellhole. When I say it's total chaos, it's total chaos. I will not allow my people to be brainwashed again by the likes of another Obama type figure. I will not allow that to happen. I fell for it. I'm not going to allow you guys to fall for it again, especially the younger people. I will not allow you to fall for another Obama type figure. This guy is a fraud. He's a clown. And I don't care how big his eyes get. If you pay attention, you can see through him too. We are going to do call-in. Eric. Yeah, Eric's going to come on. I'm going to take a quick break. And we're going to do call-in tonight since I'm not live Friday night.
Surprise call-in. All right. So it's Thursday, not Friday, but we are making it a call-in night because, like Sabrina said, she's not going to be doing a show Friday. So this is part of the show where I jump in, I come in from the background to the foreground, and read some of the super chats. Meanwhile, Sabrina will be setting up the Zoom hangout room or the Zoom call-in room, and yeah, call-in is where we can hear from you. We encourage all of you to listen in and participate. It's done on the Zoom platform. Whether or not you have your camera on is optional. And yeah, you can talk about things that we talked about during the show that Sabrina talked about, or really anything you want. And that's when we can come in. That's when we like to hear from you. Speaking of hearing from you, we got a few super chats built up here. Let's see. Snork Y2K, thanks for the super chat. And he says, and now I am still here and I want a Twinkie. Yes, the Twinkie story. Do not mess with the ladies' Twinkie or you will get it. And thanks for the super chat. CEB Applejack. For those of us who have been pushing for a revolution, I told you Trump's tariffs would give us an opportunity. The pain this will bring will give all of us an opportunity. Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that. It's things, more and more people are cluing in. That's one way that I like to think about it and express it. You're seeing people on, the quote unquote left and the quote unquote right just getting really more and more unhappy and figuring it out more and more that it's a money game. It's that MCDS about, money and corruption. And I think more and more people are ready to demand something better and to say, it doesn't have to be this way. And it's about us, coming together with clear demands. Talk about that in a second. And thanks for the super chat, Michael R, who says, if Shmuley is involved, he is blackmailing Cory. I hear you. Yeah, so so Cory Bush did this big dog and pony show, and any of us that have been watching, this stuff for any length of time really know that it's a game. That it's theater. Of course, people pointed out that it really, did nothing. In fact, like right afterwards, there was a vote on I think on Trump appointments, and they just let that sail through. And it was just a theater and a game, and the game is to be talking about anything except the core issue. And I would say that the core issue is the money and corruption. It starts at the top. It starts with this small number of people, the billionaires, the top 0.1%ers, who make sure that the system works in their favor. And so they use their money and corruption. They use their money and their power to corrupt the government and to make sure that every decision benefits them. And while we're all out here suffering, that class, that top 0.1%, are richer than ever. Their playthings, the mega corporations, are richer than ever. And so then when it comes down to, to what do we do about it? We're going to have to decorrupt the government. We're going to have to, fix that part of things up. And, one thing I thought of is that if I had the opportunity to speak or to try to do something like Cory Booker did, I couldn't come anywhere near that length of time. But I think what I would talk about and what I think would show something real versus what he did would be about 11 demands is a thing that if you're going to spend time talking to people and about things, that's a thing to talk about. And if you go to I'll demonstrate it here. Right, gotta get on the right keyboard. There we go. If you go to 11demands.org, you will see the 11 Demands website, and you're just a click away from reading the 11 demands. And so this is how at least a big part of how that Cory Booker was fake, is because what he was saying didn't sound anything like this. Demand number one, fix the big money in politics and government. That means cleaning up the elections, cleaning up the financing. You look at these billionaires, and even what you see in the records of the money that goes to these candidates it's really the tip of the iceberg, because the billionaires funnel it through the parties. And so you have these huge amounts of money going through Democratic and Republican parties. They funnel it through the third party groups and run ads and whatnot. And so it has to be a part of any real left movement is demanding an end to that, to call it out as corruption, to know that none of them are our friends, or else they would be calling it out. And it really needs to be a core part of the solutions. You've got enact a constitutional amendment, to say that corporations are not people, money is not speech. It's another core part of the problem. And so, I didn't hear Cory Booker saying, anything like this. Healthcare for all. It's not about getting out there and meekly asking for maybe Medicare for all when Medicare is being privatized right under our feet anyways. It's about demanding a real United States national healthcare system. That's what a real demand, what someone, on Congress really demanding for the 99% would look like, would sound like. And we need to be outright banning for-profit health insurance. It just shouldn't be a thing. In rejecting the privatization schemes. You go down to another one, minimum standard of living for everyone. Just asking for a minimum wage is good, but it's insufficient. We should be demanding a minimum standard of living for everyone. And that means both a living wage, it means housing for all. We saw this story today with this guy who got arrested for leaving his kids at the McDonald's. And it's like, how about childcare for all? I mean, obviously, another thing with that story is that, at worst, that should have been like social services helping the guy out. But So I was just going over what Cory Bush did a real Cory. I keep calling him Cory Bush. Cory Booker did a real speech, right? What it would look like, what it would have, and it would look like the 11 demands, end the wars, respond to the climate emergency, racial criminal justice reform, reject censorship, immigration reform. You don't. I don't know. Are any of them even saying abolish ICE anymore? They used to say that, but it doesn't even seem like you hear that. But that would be
no. Remember AOC?
To hear them out there saying that.
Well, remember there a couple years ago there was big controversy because AOC had removed it from her website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's old news for them, I guess now. And to finish up, 9, an election system we can trust, because we got to have a working election system, and revamp taxation and funding. That's a whole big thing. And democratize the enterprise, bringing on those worker co-ops. So that's my pitch on what a real filibuster would be for some real stuff.
There you go. And we are going to do call in, ladies and gentlemen. The link is pinned to the top of the live chat. I'm going to go ahead and open it while I'm on the show so people can get in. And if you come in a little bit later, you can also grab that link over at sabbysabs2.com. That's where we usually store that for you.
Or you can use it right now.
The way it works is if you're new to this, because someone may be new, if you want to speak, you just raise your hand. You do that by clicking on the option at the bottom of the screen on Zoom that says raise hand, and you just raise your hand. And that's how I know that you want to speak. So yeah, quick updates really quick, since I won't get a chance to tell you guys because I'm not going to be live tomorrow night. Eric and I are going to be starting to shoot that documentary on Saturday. Can everyone please mute? Thank you. That documentary on Saturday. So I did tell you guys we're making a documentary. But anywho, next week we will have some pretty big guests next week. I'm not going to say who. It's going to be a surprise. So stay tuned for that. And tomorrow, again, that interview with Sher Michael Singleton will premiere. So don't miss that, ladies and gentlemen. So again, link is pinned to the chat. I see people are already in the room. Eric, I'm going to go ahead and make you a co-host. And if you have questions, you want to chat, you want to vent, come on over to Call In, because we do this here on Call In instead of YouTube, just because on Zoom, you can say whatever you want. So
see you.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.